Township Board to order. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Roll call, please. Mrs. Meltzer?
Thank you. Mrs. West is excused. Mr. Keys?
Here.
Mr. Pearl?
Here.
Mr. Cannon?
Here.
Mr. Argona?
Here.
Mr. Gilliam?
Here.
Mrs. Meltzer here.
Thank you. Are there any additions and/or deletions to tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir, there's deleted item number 1 and item 19. Also an add-on, item number 27, presentation on the strategic planning process. Item 28, grant easement acquisition, and item 29, closed session pending litigation Clinton Township versus Purdue Pharma. And I would ask that we move some of the agenda items around a bit. Item number 27, there's been a request to move that to item 1. And I believe that should be sufficient, Mr. Cannon. Do you
So
agree?
moved. Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Argona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Welcome to your Township Board meeting this evening. If there's any item that you wish to discuss as it comes before the board, please come and give us your name and address for the record, and we'll hear what you have to say. If there's something that's not part of the agenda that you wish to speak on, we have public comment cards to your left in the front of the room. If you would fill one of those out, we'll hear what you have to say at the end of the meeting. So with that, we'll move to item 27, which has been moved to item 1, and item 1 of the fund run has been deleted.
All right, our Deputy Supervisor Liz Vogel is here to present.
Thank you very much for having me. Can you hear me? I like this. I'll stand here. We are in the beginnings of starting our strategic planning. The board approved the firm OHM to be our consulting firm in October, and we have been moving at lightning speed since that time. At this time, I'm just giving a brief update to the board. I do not have a formal presentation, although you do have a calendar with anticipated timelines and the phases that we're in. We're currently in phase 1, which is a lot of the pre-planning phase. So in that light, I'd like to share with you that we have a 3-person internal team from Clinton Township that's leading the way. Myself as sort of a lead champion, Stephanie Middlestedt, your administrative assistant to the trustees, like I call her my co-champion, and Amy Gogo in our office, who's our administrative support. This mirrors the team, the internal team at OHM. Aaron Domini, who you met, who gave a presentation here in October, he's sort of that lead champion. His associate, Marguerite Novak, is that co-champion, and they also have administrative support with Alyssa Sexton. So the 6 of us comprise that core team that are arranging everything. And when I say arranging everything, we are making sure that we have the most inclusive, transparent process. And for a community of this size, for a staff of this size, I'm really thrilled at how quickly we have been able to engage everybody. Last week, by Thursday, a letter was sent out to every staff member, permanent, part-time, permanent, police, fire, every frontline employee, inviting them to be a part of small stakeholder groups. And these stakeholder groups will meet once for an hour, roundtable discussion style, 8 to 10. And this is, again, open invitation for people who want to come. It's not mandatory. They will meet on December 5th and then again on January 21st. All of the full-time elected officials have been invited to the stakeholder committee, like the strategic visioning committee, along with all the department heads. And we're also inviting about 20, 30 of our huge stakeholder representatives in the community, and those letters are going out by Friday. I have been a part of strategic planning, but I've never been a part of something at this level, this breadth and this depth. And I will say that the team at OHM has been wonderful. We have scheduled 20-minute interviews with all of our department heads and elected officials and division leaders, and I believe those started today. We had 4 20-minute interviews today. Wednesday, we have about 10 lined up. Thursday's the big day. I think there's another 15, and then we wrap up on Friday. And what those 20-minute interviews are doing is making sure that the team at OHM, along with us internally, understand that we're all on the same page. So we're getting these big ideas out there. These are kind of big picture ideas. There's a website that's being developed. It actually technically just went live an hour ago. I only found out between when the work day ended and when I came here. There will be a community survey. And a lot of all the interviews that you're all doing and involved with will help inform how we finish that community survey. There will be a staff survey. That way, all staff members, including those who maybe want to share their opinions but don't want to be in a stakeholder group, can share their opinions. And then at the end of that, we will start to bring home all of those ideas. So I have put together calendars for October, November, and December. We are very much in line, and I know Stephanie is, she moved. Stephanie's here tonight. I have, as a person who's done strategic planning, it's been such a joy to work with Stephanie. I do not live in Clinton Township. She has. She's been in Macomb County her whole life. I lived in Roseville growing up. I have a lot of family in Clinton Township, but having Stephanie as like my co-cheerleader or my co-champion, that's what we're calling ourselves, is really great because it keeps the lines of communication open. It keeps the different ideas flowing. That something I thought of, she might not have thought of, something she thinks of, I may not have thought of. And I'm just really happy so far. So we're in the preliminary stages. The next steps after all the interviews are done, these phone interviews that I think all of you are signed up to do in the next few days, there will be a community survey launched on November 18th and a staff survey. There's only a quick window for those surveys because then they need to start tabulating the data. Those surveys will be open. They'll be online. I think they'll be SurveyMonkey. They will be available. I will work with our IT director, Mr. Pierce, to make sure that those are open and available to the public. And then moving into December and January is where a lot of the legwork's going to get done. And I hope to come back to the board, Mr. Cannon, maybe mid to late January with an update.
Good. Okay, we'll ask if there are any questions of the board members. Mr. Gillingham?
No, Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two questions, actually, and I do agree that you guys were quick, and I remember when the consultant was here, one of my first questions is how are you going to interact with board members, and I appreciate you guys setting up those one-on-one meetings. That'll be great. Is there any way that you could share with us the list of stakeholders, not tonight, but maybe email it out to us? It sounded, you said 20 or so people?
The external stakeholders?
Yes.
Yes, so we, Stephanie and I, in working with a lot of advice just from department heads and elected officials, came up with an exhaustive list of the major stakeholders. I can provide that to you. Now, of course, they don't have to participate. So we will send out letters to like the CEOs and their key staff that both Stephanie and I have built relationships with over the years to make sure that they know we want them to participate. Once that list is established, it's absolutely going to be available to everybody.
Great. And I know that when they gave their presentation, they did talk a little bit about online surveys, and you mentioned creating a community survey. Is that how you envision that being rolled out, or maybe haven't gotten to that point yet?
So the community survey and the staff survey will both be available electronically and in paper. So we don't want to exclude anyone who might not have access to a computer. I will work with our local library. I'll work with Mr. Neal at the library to see if we can put some out there. I have draft versions of both. The reason why they're still in draft form is because all of these 20-minute sort of broad, high-level interviews is to make sure we didn't miss anything that we should be asking in those surveys. By asking all the trustees, by asking all the department heads, hey, what do you think the challenges will be to this process? What do you think the opportunities will be? We can then tabulate all those interviews and say, oh, we should have been asking this extra question. So that will all be available in the next week, and all the stakeholders will be too.
And then just one last question, Mr. Chair. And I imagine this will be a no, but I'm curious because I think you and Stephanie both, or maybe just your office, are handling the census committee as well. Are you finding any areas of collaboration between those two, or is that just completely separate and we really haven't seen that yet?
I wouldn't say it's a no. I don't think we've gotten there yet because we're still right now creating these massive lists of stakeholders and seeing who's interested, who wants to participate at what level and how. I know that the census is really important to this community. It's really important to this state. And so if there is a way to interlink or intertwine them, I'm sure we'll find a way.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Liz.
Mr. Gunner, did you have a question?
Actually, yeah, I did. What was the website you were discussing?
So there will be a website for the project. It's a Weebly website that OHM has put together. I don't have the exact URL in front of me. It's a little lengthy.
Okay.
I will be working with Mr. Pierce in IT so that we can just maybe do a clintontownship.com/strategic vision plan.
Okay.
It will have the community background, the community survey. Once plans or draft plans are put together, it will be there as well. I got the email around 4:35 today, so I'm excited that it's about to go live, and as soon as I get home to a computer tonight, I'll send it out to the board.
Great, okay, cool. And that's just something that the public should keep looking at, because that's where all the updates will be.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilliam?
Oh, no. I was just letting you know, because you were looking this way, that Mr. Keys was.
So, Mr. Gilham, you did your interview today?
Yeah, so it wasn't a 28-minute interview, though. I kept him on the phone for like 55 minutes, so.
Well, I have a feeling we're going to run behind on Thursday because Mr. Brower said he was on for 35. I went, well, this is the pace of it. But that's really exciting. I think that everyone has something to say. And what I've been finding is even the individuals I've spoken to who were maybe not skeptical, but were a little curious, weren't sure how the process works. As someone who's done it before, I think sometimes you forget that other people haven't done strategic planning. I said, just take a step back. I gave you 3 questions. Don't overthink it. Be honest, be open. All of your questions and the community survey are all anonymous. This is about being honest, open about how we feel. And that's the best way to get to these nuggets out there that are really bothering the community or really exciting the community. And that's really the best way to go about it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Further comments from the board? Members of the community?
Sam Bushel, 18546 Wayland. I also am very concerned about the 20 to 30 huge stakeholders, especially being, it turns out they are CEOs. I think that list should be published immediately, because if it's not any homeowners groups or any condo association groups, I guess I'd wonder how these huge stakeholders, with the CEOs being the ones to answer, are more involved than the people that have been paying the taxes all these years.
Thank you. Further comments?
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Bushel. I didn't quite explain thoroughly that all community stakeholders are welcome to participate. We want to make sure that we reach a big cross-section of community business owners, educational leaders, including smaller, whether it's mom and pop stores or homeowners associations. We're still fleshing that out. But that's also why we're doing a community survey and a staff survey, because at the end of the day, not everyone can commit multiple hours to coming into meetings. And this is the best way we can reach the entire community. So we would encourage everybody to fill out that survey when it's live, whether in paper form or online, so that we do have that great cross-section that you just spoke about.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes, so we are mailing the survey out to everybody in addition to?
I don't know that we're mailing it out. I don't think so at this point. I can get you that information, Mr. Pearl. At this point, I do believe that we will make paper copies available, and we'll do our best. Stephanie and I will work together to get them out into areas where people would naturally go to pick up things, such as our library branches. That just comes to mind. However, primarily it will be done online, and we will push it out.
If you're not getting the response that you think you should get, then we should consider going that one step. I know there's a little bit of postage involved, but maybe we can include it in the quarterly, as one page of the quarterly newsletter that goes out.
Good.
But
We're
it
open
wouldn't
to all
cost
ideas.
any more.
At this stage,
I just want to make
we're
sure
looking.
we catch everybody, that everybody has a chance to respond, because I want to know what everybody thinks. That's going to make it a good plan.
Your point's well taken. So as we get closer to launching the survey, we do have our first monthly meeting next week, at the end of the week. And we'll bring that up and talk to them about how and why, what's their rationale between how and why they reach out to the public, and see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Keys, you set?
I am, actually, Ms. Vogel answered my question. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bob Hogan, 36755 Bar Street, Clinton Township. Actually, I think the 3 ladies should have a time slot on the Comcast channel that we have and put it out that way as well.
We'll use every method we can to communicate.
Do they get time slots on that, or how does that work?
Whatever is necessary, we can do, yes. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Cannon, just a point, before we go on, and the ladies are still here, we have a trustees blood drive coming up tomorrow, 8 to 4. Maybe Stephanie could speak about it for a minute? It's okay?
It's a community service that we provide. There is a shortage of blood, so yes. And there's
there's
only
some slots.
several openings, which is good.
Yes. I apologize, I didn't have anything prepared. Thank you very much. On a good note, we do have all of the slots filled except for 3 cancellations that we just had this morning. So this is our most successful pre-registration that we've ever had, or so I'm being told by the blood drive. It is tomorrow morning at our senior center from 8 a.m. until 2 p.m. If anybody is interested, we do still have, other than those 3 available time slots, some walk-in slots that are available. But we are one of the largest communities in the state, and so we do hope to provide a lot of blood available for anybody who needs it. So, thank you.
Thank you. You did that very well.
Well, thank you.
So today's the 12th, so the drive is on the 13th. So if you're seeing this replayed, disregard what you just
You'll have
heard.
to catch
We're
the
live.
Tomorrow,
the
Wednesday,
treasure.
the
Seen it
13th.
live.
Next one.
Well, no, if you've seen it live, tomorrow's the day.
We've seen it live tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2, request approval of the Christmas tree lot license.
This is, the location is at 34607 Gratiot. Giuseppe Lentini, he's made this request in the past, there's never been any issues.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 3 is Arboretum Committee applicant introductions.
Dear board members, there are 2 terms up for appointment on the Arboretum Committee. Terms are for 3 years to expire on October 13th, 2022. 3 applications have been received. James Hungerford and James Cheney have submitted their applications for reappointment, and Stephen Gurin has also submitted his application for appointment. Per the policy guidelines, an invitation has been extended to all applicants to attend the November 12th, 2019 board meeting, in which they will be provided an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Board of Trustees, whereby each being given a 3-minute time limit in which to do so. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Stephanie Middlestat, Administrative Assistant.
Thank you. Now I was informed that Mr. Gurin may be here this evening. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Stephen Gurin, 41767 Alden Drive in Clinton Township. Yes, I'm looking to get on the committee there. I am a business owner in Clinton Township since 1988. Actually, my dad started the business, and I've been there many years since then. So I've been working in Clinton Township for many years. I own a house now for the last 3 years. I'm looking to get involved in Clinton Township a little more and find out a little bit more about it. I've been to the Arboretum, or however you say that, and it is a very nice place over there, and trying to learn more about it. I'm not going to say I'm an expert or anything else like that. I am an accountant by trade, but have been in many groups and committees and things like that to understand the way those things work, and would like to help out in the township in some form or fashion, and this was one of the things that came up. I'm not looking to push somebody off that's a well-established person or anything like that, but I'm looking to try and help out.
We appreciate you being here. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Okay, and item 4 is the 2019-20 CDBG Community Development Block Grant Subrecipient Agreements.
These dollars have been allocated previously and approved, and I don't know if our, Mr. Thompson or,
Well, it's a fairly thick packet, and the reason that we're approving these tonight, it's basically a contract that allows us to spend the money. Contracts, plural, that allows us to spend the money that we've already voted to spend.
yes.
So unless there's any comments or questions, we can have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 5, proposed rezoning, R2 one-family residential to planned unit development or PUD.
This commission has made review and held public hearing on the proposal to rezone the above referenced land as located east of Romeo Plank Road, north of Canal Road, from R2 one-family residential to planned unit development, PUD, along with a conceptual plan for Providence Estates single-family site condominiums. We hereby make recommendation for approval of the rezoning and conceptual plan as requested. Please note that if approved, the petitioner will be submitting detailed final phase PUD plans that will be reviewed and forwarded to the Planning Commission for their recommendation back to this board. This action was approved by unanimous vote, and a copy of the notice of the October 24, 2019 public hearing containing legal description and general location sketch of the land in question, along with the conceptual site development plan for Providence Estates condominiums, is attached for information and file. This matter was petitioned by Mr. Mario Izzy, MJC Land Investments, LLC, 46600 Romeo Plank Road, Suite 5, Macomb, Michigan, 48044. We submit this proposal for consideration. Sincerely, Catherine Cherry, Secretary for the Clinton Township Planning Commission.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions of board members? Mr. Gilliam?
Just if I could, so developments like these are usually either done through a site plan or the conditional rezoning. PUD is a relatively new ordinance for us, and I was wondering if it might make sense for the planning director just to give a sense as to what a planned unit development is and why we chose this as the vehicle by which to approve this
Mr.
project.
Thompson, take
Thank
us
you.
from step one, why this makes so much sense to begin with, and why it makes so much sense for this piece of property.
And I appreciate the opportunity to say that, because this is our first planned unit development. And when I came on board as the new planning director, I felt that it was a tool in the toolbox that we were missing. I think it's an important tool for a community like Clinton Township when you're predominantly a developed community and you're really left with tough sites. Sites that have unusual features, sites that have natural features that you want to preserve. And that's really the first tenet of a planned unit development. When you look at the ordinances, the first thing that ordinance looks to do is integrate site amenities, existing trees, existing wetland areas into a development. And this is really a prime example of doing that. This is a negotiation between the township and MJC to allow what it's zoned for, which is a residential use, but to allow them more density in a smaller area to make up for them offering to save a large swath of natural features on this property. And so what it does then is it really benefits everybody, right? It benefits the township and the neighbors around it, because the woods that they're used to and the natural features that are part of that area stay. The ecosystem in general stays intact.
They normally don't.
We win because we get a very positive development for this community. These are going to be nice single-family homes in a single-family zoned area. They certainly have the option to create more homes, get rid of some of the wetlands, if not all of the wetlands or woodlands, and pack in a lot of homes on that site. And that's just not something that is good for anybody. And obviously the third one is the developer, right? They get to develop this site. We're offering them, in lieu of saving those natural features, a little bit more density within the area that they are going to develop. So it has to make money sense. It has to make sense as a developer as well, right? Because that's what they're in business to do. And we're going to attract new families to this community and continue that cycle of providing new homes and better homes for folks that may already live here, but as well want to live here. So what you have is this first step, which is a rezoning to that PUD designation. The first step asks this board to approve it in concept. Now, I'm sure most, if not all of you, saw the Planning Commission meeting, and it was great because it did exactly what a PUD public hearing is supposed to do. It brought all those folks in that area out, and there were some really good discussions about some potential changes to that site plan, the one that you have now. And that's what that final site plan then does, is it gives us the opportunity, the developer and the township, after the township board approves that preliminary or that conceptual approval, to sit back down, make some changes potentially to that plan to address some of the concerns that the citizens may have had, or some of the suggestions they have. There's some very positive suggestions, or some of the considerations that the board has. So this is a great litmus test for this ordinance,
Right.
and I think it's one that you're going to be seeing more in the future. At least I'm hoping that we do. And it doesn't just take into account natural features. It also allows the township to let sites be developed with mixed uses. instead of just standard single uses on properties, now we can incorporate both residential and commercial uses, more modern, more sustainable development for this community.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. What it does also is gives the Planning Commission a second chance and the Township Board a second chance to approve the final rendition. An unintended good thing from this is the sidewalk on the east side of Romeo Plank will now be completed all the way from the school up to the library, actually up to Bud Park. So that'll be nice. So are there any comments or questions from the community? It will come back. It will go back to the Planning Commission if approved, and it will come back to the Township Board for final approval. And it would be my recommendation that we proceed with this project.
I'll support, but I'd like to speak on it if I can.
Thank you.
We need a second.
Mr. Key seconded.
I think he wanted to
I think
speak on
he's-
it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But who
No, I
supported?
said I'll second it. I just would like to speak on it. I'm sorry.
So Bob, then Mike, and then he wants to speak first.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the developer here today? No? Okay.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's.
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
He's coming up.
Yeah.
Mr. Pearl had mentioned or pointed out to me that in the minutes of the Planning Commission, there's clear, and Mr. Kanan just made some reference to some sidewalks. Are there sidewalks throughout the entire development? I was just struggling to see that on the site plan.
Yes, sir. Mario Izzi with MJC. I'm here on behalf of the petitioner, Michael Chirko. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. Yes, to clarify, we are proposing sidewalks within the development in front of every home, all 66
Great.
units, and we are proposing a sidewalk, which would probably be a safety path. I think that's the engineering requirement, an 8-foot path along Romeo Plank on our side. We're going to have to do some ditch enclosure in conjunction with Macomb County Road Commission, their permit department, but that is part of our proposal this evening as well.
Great. And then I think this was referenced at the Planning Commission meeting, if I remember correctly, but Bruce, where we see that it says limits of proposed development, are we going to be seeing any type of fencing there, or is that going to be open space and maybe the owners will have the ability to put up a fence?
We generally do not allow fencing in our communities. That's a great question. Some people, they do prefer for pets, they want to have the enclosure in just the rear yard. We wouldn't put a fence around the perimeter of the development. That open space, the intention is to allow the wildlife to
Right.
continue to move back and forth. The proposed lots that would back up to that, I could foresee them putting fences in their backyard just to keep their pets in. And I think we want to probably do that, and the more that I think about it, because I know there's plenty of deer, raccoons, and critters that run around in the area. And I don't think you want dogs and running through that open space and maybe going out into a road. So I think we want to allow the residents to at least have fences on their yards, backyards only, but not a perimeter fence around that open space so that the
Right.
wildlife can move freely.
And so that would just be on the individual then. Once they purchase the lot, they'd be able to put up that privacy fence or any type of fence
Yes,
that
sir.
was allowed under the ordinance. Okay, thank you.
I got a quick question.
Mr. Aragona?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Supervisor. When we were talking at the Planning Commission, there's and maybe it's for Mr. Thompson, isn't there a basin towards the south end of the development?
Yeah, the site plan does indicate preliminarily that the stormwater detention system would be at the southwest corner of the site.
Yeah.
Their tie-in to the storm, there's actually already an existing tie-in, if that's the right word, at the north end of St. Paul
Okay.
Tarsus Church. So it's the logical place to put that because that's literally where the storm tie-in would be for that overall development. It was actually designed that way.
But near the street, wasn't there a basin? And it kind of, Mr. Key's question kind of reminded me of that. Weren't we trying to figure out whether that was going to be fenced in or not?
Ultimately, through the chair, that's going to be up to the county. I know they have
Yeah.
standards for fencing based on the slope of the detention.
Did we figure
ponds
that
and
out
kind
yet,
of thing.
though, or no?
No, we're, again, in a preliminary stage. That's some of the detail that you'll see at the final stage, the dotted i's and crossed t's. That, more of that information will become available at that point.
Okay,
If
and
I
then,
might,
go ahead.
just to clarify, excuse me for interrupting. Depending on what your engineering ordinance requires, and I don't have it memorized, depending on the slope of those detention ponds for safety, it may require us to put a safety fence around that.
Right.
We would install something ornamental, but would still fulfill the safety requirements as well.
Well, that'd be great, okay.
Yeah.
And then, Mr. Thompson, I remember when we were looking at this project at the Planning Commission, we kind of looked at it more holistically. But I'm looking at the map that's on the agenda here, and it looks like there's two different plots. Do you know why?
if I remember correctly, and I don't have the pictures in front of me, when I included in the presentation a second site plan,
Yeah.
that was to show you what the potential for development was. One of the things about a PUD, when you're looking at it, is we'd like to ask the developer to show what could be versus what we're trying to accomplish, right? So what variations are they asking for relative to the ordinance, right? And so I think what that was is the plan that's on the screen right now is the plan that shows that 66 lots and the open space area. The other one showed, actually was a plan that they submitted when we first met. And they talked about developing the site as a whole and getting rid of all the trees and the natural features. And we asked them, wait, we're coming up with a PUD ordinance. We really think it's important to save natural features. So that's kind of a before and after, right?
Okay.
That could have been the potential development of that site if nothing was saved.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I just wanted to make a statement. I really appreciate what you guys are doing to allow us to work with you through this PUD ordinance to allow some natural feature there, because that's always more aesthetically pleasing. It's going to bring home value to those areas. And I believe you guys are also clearing out the deadwood, correct? I mean, so you're going to go
That's
through
part
and
of
clear
our,
it?
yes, sir, that's part of our proposal. There's, because of the, a lot of the ash trees and the emerald ash borer that's gone through the county
Yeah.
over the past years, there's a lot of dead trees, leaning trees, it needs to be made safe. We would only propose to clear any of the dead or dying trees that's in the open space, and then we'd get out of there, just to
Sure.
make it safe. And then obviously, we would have to clear cut the 16 acres or so that we're proposing for development. But the 8 acres in the back would remain in its natural state, other than the clearing of the dead trees.
Right, which is great. And then I also wanted to point out one thing that I thought was really cool about this project. There is a development to the north. However, you guys are leaving, what is it, 40 feet of the
There's
forest there?
currently 30 feet. We took a second look after the meeting. I actually misspoke at the previous meeting. I thought it was 40 feet. It's not. It's 30 feet of
Okay.
buffer. Those lots on the northern end, there's a little bit of extra room there. We could probably shorten the back of those lots up a little bit and make this buffer around 35 feet. And I did walk the site the day after we had the planning commission meeting. There's a lot of maple trees, a lot of good healthy maple trees on that north end that we can save.
So that's going to be a wooded buffer
That will
between
be-
the two developments?
Yes, sir, that's
Which is
included
great.
in the 8 acres of open space. If you look and see that there's no division between that northern boundary and the eastern boundary.
Fantastic. Thank
There'll be
you.
a general common element to the homeowners association, to the condo.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Supervisor.
Earl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When are you planning, if you get approval, when are you planning to go forward with this?
We currently have an interest in the property. We would be closing on the property by the end of the year. I would start with engineering application an hour ago if I could. We're very eager to start this project. It is an environmentally sensitive project, so we are going to have some complicated permits that we're going to have to get from the state. We would start that application process with the, I guess, the culmination of our engineering once we finalize that. We can't always predict what the economic cycle is going to do. We're in a little bit of a down slope right now. Sales are a little bit slow. Once we get through the election year, we think people are going to have confidence as long as interest rates are low. We see this project breaking ground 2 years at the latest, unless, we have an economic fallout, which I don't foresee happening.
Okay.
But we would like to at least manage the property sooner than later. And when I say manage, the dead trees, the house is a shambles, it's a safety issue. That has to get cleaned up and demoed. And then we'd like to manicure the property, manage it like we would normally with the rest of our land.
It looks like a good project. And I know that the residents in the area will be notified if there's any changes to the original plans, correct?
Let's go back to the planning commission.
Absolutely.
But they'll be re-notified?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, by letter. I guess since you're answering that question, the thing I have concerns with are developers that mean well. They start out by clearing the land first. I don't appreciate that. I've seen many developments sit there for year after year, and they've cleared the whole area. And I know I've talked to the board about changing that ordinance, because what would you expect the developer to be able to do during this period that they're managing the property? Is he going to be allowed to clear the whole property?
No.
Trees?
Not that I'm aware of, but honestly, that's a DPS engineering question. I'm not well-versed enough with what their requirements and their policies, their procedures are. You know, I just haven't been directly involved in it, so, but I would expect, well, there we go.
But I missed the question. I was working on something else, sorry. What was the question?
The question, Mr. Bednard, is the developer isn't sure when he could start based on conditions and permits from the state. And once he gets going, what is he going to be allowed to do during this period that he wants to manage the property? I'm concerned about developers coming in and not having a good timetable, but the first thing they do is clear the whole land, and we'll have a vacant piece of property that doesn't get developed. I've seen it too many sites. in
So
Clinton Township.
past practices, they have to have all their permits and everything in hand before we allow them to clear sites. Unless there is an environmental issue, unless there is some kind of issue that we don't know. I'll give you an example. Recently, we let the Rose Gardens start a little bit earlier, the second phase of the Rose Gardens, because they were going to be working up against the river. And we wanted to make sure it was stabilized before we got into winter and flash flooding and so forth. So we did allow them to do that work up front. But you know what, their permits, we also knew their permits were in, and we were going to get them within 2 weeks.
But
type
I've
idea.
seen some developers take all the trees down before they even get engineering plans in.
Right, but usually we don't allow any work from the engineering side until they have the plans in and approved. And we'll work with them to get that done in a timely fashion.
Okay, so as a developer, you can do the surveying and everything without taking the trees down?
We could do the surveying, correct. We're concerned, if we take title to this property, I'm concerned about the safety issues with this property. It hasn't been managed in 50 years.
You want that house torn down.
The
Yeah,
house
but
and
the house has
trees.
nothing to do with all the trees being taken down.
We do allow the dead trees to be removed, any kind of
Under our
dangerous.
supervision?
No, we don't have staff to sit out there and watch to make sure, but anything dead, the house would have to get a proper permit through the building department and so forth. But any engineering / site grading or utilities, any of that all has to be approved prior.
Mr. Pearl, if I may too, the plans that you have and the plans that will be part of the plan unit development agreement do include a formal tree survey. So all that information is part of the information that you're going to approve. The plan unit development agreement that the township is going to sign, in essence, is an agreement that says they're going to develop this property precisely how you agreed to do it, right? So you're really rezoning it to the plans that you are approving. So it's not being rezoned to PUD, and gee, what happens? You're rezoning it to PUD, and then the agreement has the site plan, the landscape plan, the floor plans, the elevations, the tree survey, the engineering are all
I'm not-
appendix
wait.
A, B, C, D, and E, and so.
I agree. I'm a developer full-time, so I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
But there were a lot of concerns from the public about the trees. Okay? Now, I know certain trees are going to have to come down for buildings. Maybe they can be relocated. But the final landscaping is one thing, but in between, while we're waiting for things to happen, I don't want to see the property vacant of all those trees before he's ready to go. I can see the dead trees coming down. I agree, the house, no, of course. But the final plan means with homes. But there's going to be a period of maybe a year, maybe two, where there's nothing going to happen. I'd rather we didn't start with getting in there and taking down all the good trees.
Agreed.
That eventually have to come down by agreement and by plans. Do you understand the difference?
I understand your concern,
Because I've seen some on some of the streets, but there's no trees left there, and there's no development. And they didn't even go ahead and get engineering finished and stuff. So I don't want to see the property taken apart until you're really ready.
if I may, sir?
Yes.
Is your concern that we were to clear cut the site, only the development impact areas, and then walk away from the site? Is that?
Whether you have delays, not walk away, but you just are waiting for things to happen, whether it's the economy or permits or whatever,
Right.
and there's a period of time that's extensive. I don't have any problem taking the whole house down or the trees that are dead, but I don't want to remove trees that are going to be in your way until you're ready to go. And that it's not going to be a year or two unforeseen things come up or whatever, and we're left with this piece of property that doesn't have any trees left,
I
you know?
understand your concern, sir.
And there's no homes there.
Right, but with all due respect, I would like the right to retain the ability to manage the property, and whatever the time of the season is. For instance, look at the weather we had this year. Look how wet it was. It's very difficult to get on sites because of the amount of water that's sitting on these sites. If we have another wet year, another wet season, I may only be able to clear cut that site during the wintertime when there's frost in the ground, so I don't make a mess and incur additional costs. And this is learned through experience of doing this for almost 30 years. I'm not saying we want to clear cut the site and let it sit for 5 years, but if there's a development, I guess, phase of 1.5 to 2 years, from the time we get all our permits to the time we put up our silt fence and tree protection fencing on this site, if it takes 2 years from the day we put a shovel in the ground and cut the first tree down to the last landscape tree that goes at the entranceway after the roads are paved, that would be a little bit unusual, but again, without knowing what the economic cycle is going to be, this site, it's going to be a challenge to develop, and it may take a little bit longer than a normal site. I want to be completely honest. You know, this is a tough
Well,
site.
Obviously, this is going to come back to us. So I'm in favor of approving it tonight. And Mr. Dolan, maybe we can take a look at our ordinances and that, and maybe we can get a little closer to
And I'm not trying to be argumentative.
middle
I just
ground.
want to
No,
be
I
absolutely
understand
honest.
where you're at.
Yes,
Makes
sir.
sense.
I know, but I just don't, I want to have a little give or take where
Yes, sir.
the neighbors, the residents don't have to see a vacant piece of property for years, you know? So I have no problem with going ahead with this tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Further comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melser, yes, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Item 6, revised conditional rezoning agreement for campus collection.
Attached is a request for revised site development approval and revision to the conditional zoning agreement for the campus collection development. The 3.715 acre site is located at the southwest corner of Garfield Road and 19 Mile Road. The site was originally granted approval by the Township Board on December 10, 2018. The revised site plan indicates elimination of the proposed 8,720 square foot multi-tenant building with drive-through at the east end of the site and proposes construction of a 4,130-foot Culver's restaurant with drive-through in the same location. Parking, landscaping, and site layout otherwise remains the same. Upon review of the proposed plans, the Department of Planning and Community Development is forwarding this request to the Township Board with a recommendation for approval. Attached is a revised development site plan and drafted amendment to the conditional zoning agreement for your review. Sincerely, Bruce Thompson, Director for the Department of Planning and Community Development.
Thank you. And Mr. Thompson is here, as well as the builder petitioners. If there are any questions or comments of board members, I know that I'm delighted to get a Culver's here in Clinton Township, and I know they're not that easy to come by. Mr. Aragona?
If nobody, if the petitioner is here, hi, can you just explain why the change? I think we approved this about a year ago, and there's two different buildings. Now we're moving from the previous plan to now we have a Culver's. Can you just explain what happened?
Correct. So we were originally approved. I think the conditional zoning agreement was recorded back in January. What happened was we started dressing the site, doing some land balancing, marketing the site, and a broker had contacted our organization. Again, Garfield 19 Mile Investments at 38700 Van Dyke, Suite 200 in Sterling Heights. And back and forth with negotiations, our organization entered into an agreement with the Culver's organization, and here we are today, looking to amend the conditional zoning agreement to accommodate the Culver's location on the corner.
Okay. Did you ever, like, try and fill the previous building, the previous plan, or did it worked out that it was called?
The plan, if you look at the plan, it's still going to be a two-building plan. The corner will be the Culvers, and it's collectively 15,200 and, I think, 23 square feet. The multi-tenant space
Yeah.
will still remain intact from the original plan. We do have some prospective users for that. Nothing's been signed or is a firm deal as of yet, but we're actively marketing it.
Okay, all right. And then do you know how soon it is before you guys are going to break ground? General timeframe?
We've started doing some land balancing. Should this go through, our plans for the, we refer to it as Building B in the site plan. Our building plans are pretty much done. So if this were to be approved, we'd proceed with getting our building plans submitted to the township for review and approval, wrap up the civil engineering, because there'd be a few tweaks to accommodate the culverts, and go through the ordinary course of getting a building plans approved.
Okay. All right.
Good. Mr. Pearl?
Yeah, so you're still looking at 2 drive-through buildings. You're just eliminating the multi-tenant building. One of
Correct.
them.
So the culverts would definitely have a drive-through. The multi-tenant building is package protected to have a second drive-through if a user comes.
Because we had approved 2 drive-throughs,
Correct,
so there won't be more than 2.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr.
Yeah,
Keys?
that was actually one of my questions, because it sounded like you said there could be a possibility of a third drive-through. That's not the case. Maybe I just misheard that.
No, the Culvers would have a drive-through, and then we call it Building B in the
B.
site plan. That's planned to have a drive-through should a user come about.
Understood. And then,
Like a Panera?
We'll try.
we wish. Mr. Thompson, looking at this site plan, and I know we had one previously that was much better quality. This one's a little hard to read. Am I seeing what I love, though, is the landscaping in that drive-through? Because
Yeah.
that's something I just think is a great asset, and it really elevates any development. So,
Absolutely.
perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further comments from board? Community?
Move to approve?
Thank you. Supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7 is approval of a new Class C liquor license for the Gnocchi Restaurants.
Dear board members, applicant it's Yonki Italian LLC located at 41620 Garfield Road, Clinton Township, Michigan 48038, is requesting your approval of ownership for one of 3 remaining quota liquor licenses. Yonki Italian Restaurant LLC has successfully fulfilled the requirements per the building department and fire department, as well as the police background check, payment of the application fee, and any outstanding township fees necessary to acquire this request. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer, Clinton Township Clerk. And if I can, Mr. Cannon, read into the minutes this letter that the applicant submitted a few days ago. And it is in the board packet, but it shows the, let me just first start out and clarify, this is a different transfer than maybe what the other ones we've seen in the past. We have awarded quota licenses in the past, and those are given to a community based on the census every 10 years. We're given so many Class C liquor licenses, and now they're all called quota licenses. But these 3 licenses that we have left in our ability to give out are used as generally economic development tools. And so we're nearing the end of our census, the 10-year census, and in another probably 2 years, after 2020, the census will, take place, but then it'll take a year for them to compile that information, and by then we'll know if we're going to get any more new Class C licenses or not. But this is one of 3 that is remaining, and as I said, let me read this into the minutes, and then I can maybe answer any other questions the board members may have. This is from Jeffrey Heinzman. He said, "I myself have been committed to Clinton Township businesses for years. At Heinzman's Heidelberg from 1992 until 2002. Now at Yankee Italian Restaurant for 3.5 years, winning many awards of excellence. In 1997, I was honored to be inducted into the American Academy of Chefs, the Honor Society of the American Culinary Federation, with only 700 members in the whole world. I was and still am the youngest person to be inducted into the Academy. Now at Yankee, we have participated in many Clinton Township fundraisers and winning awards, from Best Food Award for 2 out of 3 years at the Macomb County Library Taste of the Town, first place at Freedom Hill 2019 Best Meatball Contest, Clinton Township Police Honor Guard Award for the past 2 years, participated in the Anton Art Center at Art Party for 11 years. At Yankee, we donate to every person that has asked for a donation since we've opened. Our greatest achievement is winning for 2 years Channel 4's Best of the Best Italian restaurant in the Detroit area. We also are signing a 5-year extension on our building lease in contingency of the liquor license approval. So yes, I am very interested in Clinton Township, and thank you, Jeffrey Heinzman, owner for the Yankee Italian restaurant. And so, if I may, Mr. Cannon,
Yes.
continue. So this comes to the board for their approval of a free license. Now, let me just explain. It really isn't free in the sense that there is an application fee of $1,850, which the applicant did pay. And what makes this free is basically these licenses are sold on the market and can range anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000. I'm not sure what the going rate is right now. So in that regard, it's considered a free license, but there is an application cost associated with that. And again, there is precedent for awarding a license without economic development in terms of like what we saw at the, on Gratiot with the AMC Theater, where they invested quite a few millions, I think it was a couple millions of dollars into redeveloping that facility. But also along Gratiot, we awarded a small family-owned business, Pete and Mary Two, a free quota license. And so there's a varying spectrum in terms of why we give, licenses out. It can be for economic development. It can be because there's been a strong example, as in this case, where the business owner has shown a commitment to the community. And that is where I believe that this applicant feels he's worthy of coming to the board to make this request.
Thank you. Mr. Pearl?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to comment about whether he should get it or not. I just want to know.
You have to do that. You have to make that
Not right,
decision.
I'm saying right now, I
Oh.
just wanted to discuss some of the famous things that I hear at this meeting, the process. And I usually don't bring that up, but other board members do. So here's the question, is we have a Class C quota, I pulled it up online, a Class C quota liquor license application instructions. Is there a reason why none of it was done, other than he did pay the $850. And by this, his food's great, by the way.
It is very good, yeah.
Okay, and we did the ribbon cutting there. It was really nice. There's this full thing, are we waiving the whole application? Because it says 3 years of income tax returns, 3 years of federal, state income tax returns must be attached clearly as exhibits.
It was, but we don't put that out on the packet. Generally, we don't do
But you
that.
send it to us separately. Confidential.
So there was discussion back in 2012 when the state of Michigan took over the liquor licensing from the locals. We were trying to determine if this was something we even wanted to make as a requirement locally. And I think that at the time, the reason that we decided this would be just a one-time application fee was because it allows the police or anybody else that may have to, like our building department, go into the building to make sure, and our fire department, to make sure things are in compliance with the building and fire codes. And then also because there is a social impact with liquor establishments in the community for, let's say, like any calls that police may get. This helps to mitigate that call, but it doesn't even really come close to actually mitigating the cost. For instance, let's say there's a bar brawl or whatever. I'm sure it costs more than $1,850 for the police to come out and manage that. So it just helps to mitigate those costs. So the financials and all of that were added as a way of making sure that this company had the staying power and made that initial investment in the community. We've
Well,
seen.
you've got, talk about investment, it says the criteria was verification of economic development in the community, documenting $40,000 investment within 36 months, preceding application or submitted approved plans to be completed within 24 months.
So we can waive that, and I don't know if, Mr. Dolan, we discussed that. That can be waived, and that was waived in, a previous applicant's request.
I pulled it off. I don't know what it was. I pulled it off. So
Mr. Dolan, would you want to speak to that? I mean, you and I discussed that regarding and he did sign that waiver, or I'm sorry, not the waiver, the reversion clause. The reversion clause states that within 90-day period of time, consecutive days of 90 days, consecutive days without prior, when they're not in business, that liquor license would come back to the township. So I think that does show a commitment to the township.
I'm having a real problem because I like the establishment, but I'm just trying to figure out how this one, because he asked, and what about the other 30 on Garfield, or the ones that we said no to on 50 Mile and Gratiot? We said yes to one that was in the DDA, but we said no to one of the others. And maybe there's a lot of other restaurants. I'm just trying to figure out, we only have a few, so how do we base it? I thought we had a program, and Mr. Killian was part of that, and was a proponent of this whole committee and all that thing, but are we asking to waive that whole process and just issue it? What happens to the next guy that comes here, the gentleman or lady that was running an establishment and says, I want it, why did you give it to him?
Yeah.
Can you give it to me?
Those are really good questions. I guess that's something you have to, decide on your, decide how you want to vote on this tonight. The one that you were referring to that we didn't give in the past on 15 Mile Road, I voted to give it to them. So I guess, but it was just a majority that agreed that, they didn't deserve that particular license. But again, you can decide, how you want to handle this, but we're complying with, anything that we've asked this applicant to comply with, he has, and it's up to us as a board to determine if we want to award this license based
Except he
on.
didn't have to do the application, it didn't go through the committee. That's all I'm saying. Is
No, none of the applications ever go through the committee.
Point of information, is there an application?
Yeah.
Is it just the letter that we have and
No.
the Laserfish produced approvals?
That is always what we give, and any other liquor license that we've established, that's what we submit, so yeah.
On transfers.
And there's financials that we don't want the public to necessarily, we don't want them to have access to all that information. And in fact, I just gave him back the information tonight, but it is,
Mr. Pearl, you still have the floor.
Okay, maybe.
It has been
Maybe
submitted.
the committee doesn't meet any longer about it, but we do have an application. I'm asking tonight is, give me a reason why we're waiving the application process.
we're not waiving the
We're
application.
streamlining it to just a few inspections and the fee is all you're giving us, right?
So, no, we're not waiving the application. He did fill out the
No, I
application.
said but he didn't fill out the you didn't give us the whole application.
We don't, you haven't gotten any of the whole applications in the last, since we've implemented Laserfish. You get the approvals from the different departments. So the police give their report. Police, on theirs is usually more extensive, their background check, because it's a criminal background check. And then, let's see if that's in here. And then also, then the building and fire. So if you turn it over here, there's a long description of from Lieutenant Randall. Did you guys see that? It's in the packet. And so that, yes, this is how these come, and this is how we've approved previous liquor license transfers in the past.
But this, to me, is not a transfer, your
No.
approval of a new license.
It's a new license, and we
It's a-
have.
we
So I'm
agree.
just trying to figure out, in relationship to all the other businesses that would like one, I'm sure this gentleman should have one, but we only have limited numbers, so I'm just trying to figure out the criteria you're using.
So we have had these licenses for 10 years. There, nobody, I mean, I say nobody, but there's not a lot of businesses knocking on our doors, making these requests, even though they know that they're out there. Because I get phone calls and they'll say, do you have any available? Yes. And I'll say which portions are quotas and which are not. And I know Cellar 59 in the mall was one that first came to us for a liquor license, a quota license. And because the process took too long, they ended up buying it on the market. So there's various reasons why people choose, and maybe we should hear from the applicant too. So maybe that might help you understand.
I'll let the board discuss it further.
Okay, we oftentimes disagree on giving out these licenses. And there's many famous restaurants in Clinton Township that did not receive they received a majority, but they didn't receive all 7 votes. And
Correct.
including, it was a 4-3 vote to give Sage Rose Restaurant a liquor license a few years ago. I personally think that he needs a shot in the arm in the location he's in. He's going to sign a long-term lease. We've got a quality product that all of us know about. And I'd like to see him stay around for quite some time, and I think this would give him a greater chance to do that. So I'll be voting yes to give him a license for that reason. It is for economic development and redevelopment, and he does have an investment in his business. Did you wish to speak?
Yes, Jeff Heinzman, majority owner of Gnocchi Italian Restaurant. Yeah, a few things. Now, I can answer a few of those questions. Number one, yes, we invested $45,000 in the beginning when we opened up Gnocchi. Since then, it has been tough. It's tough selling a product that's homemade and everything in the restaurant's made from scratch and trying to compete with other restaurants that have liquor license and that are charging a lot more for their food. And we just want a chance and the same level as them to be able to serve a glass of wine with a plate of pasta. I'm not looking to get rich off this liquor license. I'm looking to collect the customers that walk in the door and they find out we don't have wine and turn around and walk out. Those are the people I'm trying to keep. I'm not trying to get rich on it. I have owned businesses in Clinton Township between the Heidelberg and the Gnocchi. I've invested into this township, blood, sweat, and tears. Last couple of years, I don't want to get too far into it, but I don't collect a whole lot of money out of Clinton Township for myself. I'm trying to keep my business running. The subject of free license, like I said to her when she said free to me is when somebody gives you something. This was $1,800 was the smallest cost of this license. I had to buy out my partner. I had to pay a lawyer. I had to pay different people to get me where I'm at right now. So nothing was free. So that's really a touchy word with me because in business, I haven't found anything that was free. So that's what our intentions are in just staying in business, employing good people in this township and making people happy with homemade food.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilliam?
So I think I can clear up some of this. So when I first got on the board, I was a trustee. I'm looking at this. We have all these quota licenses. They're awarded after the census. At the time, the township was given 10 of them. So anybody out there has the option to do one of two things: go out and buy a liquor license on the market. There are liquor licenses available. As Ms. Meltzer indicated, they usually go from 50 to 80,000 during the economic crisis. The prices dramatically dropped. They've now sort of creeped back up. But the fact is, we earmarked 2 of them for the DDA along Gratiot. That was the area that we needed economic development. One of the first ones we dealt with when I got on the board as a trustee was the Palm Palace. And my argument at the time is, if there's one place in Clinton Township where we don't need to make a township investment to spur economic development, it's along Hull Road or Partridge Creek. Now, quite frankly, we're seeing even that change somewhat. But the fact is, we did come up with a process. At the time, we talked about this application process. We believed, even though the state has taken this over, it's still important to go through a lengthy application process so we can look at the financials. So anytime anybody submits an application, it goes to the police department. Do they have violations? Does it meet the criteria of being able to run a liquor license responsibly? It goes to the fire department. Is everything in order there? It comes to my office as the treasurer now. It didn't back then when I was a trustee, but as the treasurer, it comes to my office. Are the financials taken care of? We have an ordinance on the books, 20209, that says that you can't be approved for anything at the township if you have outstanding or delinquent taxes or you have open invoices. So we looked at it. Ms. Meltzer dropped the application, the full application with everybody's financials, everybody's tax returns, and we reviewed them. Came up with a list of issues, one of which was, okay, the lease is for a short window. We want to see the lease extended because we want a longer-term commitment if we're going to be granting this liquor license. It's my understanding, Mr. Heinzman, you have that accomplished?
Yes, 5, we're adding on, I'm exercising my 5-year option to take on another 5 years. So now I'll be there 7 years. So now it's just not 2 anymore, it's 7.
Yeah.
But it's on contingency of this vote, because without wine, I'm not going to make it. I just
Yeah.
can't keep working for free.
And I think I can confirm that, having actually reviewed the financials, I see that the cost structure is going down. The gross revenue and receipts is actually going up, so that's a good trend. But I do think that in the motif of restaurant that you're operating in, this is probably an essential component. So again, back to the option. You had the option to go out and buy one on the open market or apply to the township. We do have them available. The census is approaching. We may actually receive more of these depending upon population shifts. I guess one of the considerations for me is I'm looking at this plaza, and I'm seeing the struggles, particularly in that area of Garfield. I'm looking at the plaza where there's nobody else in this plaza anymore. There was a Papa John's. There was the Black Market Bar. I'm seeing open space. Normally, I like to see at least a 1-for-1 or a 2-for-1 investment, meaning if we're making an investment in your restaurant, we want to see you making an equal or even more than that return in your restaurant. Now, I think you've made some of that investment, and I think you've made it in terms of the quality of the product that you're putting out. You're not actually coming to the table with the criteria that we're asking for. But at the same time, I'm also seeing there's room for expansion here. So, you know, if you're doing well, then I see that area doing well. If you are expanding based upon this investment, is there the potential for greater investment in more space within
Next door to me, yes.
within that restaurant? There's that whole Black Market Bar, your former Black Market Bar. So I see that as a potential, but it's not meeting the criteria that I'm hoping for when I approve these. However, we did make that investment on Gratiot because we wanted to see that restaurant stick around. We wanted to see that restaurant survive. We have the whole issue with the what do they call it? The compost operation over there that's impacting the operations of that restaurant. And that was part of the reason that the township made that investment.
Oh, you mean Pete and Mary Tews? Oh, yeah.
Miss Mary and Pete.
Or Miss,
Yeah, so they have a whole nother set of circumstances over there. For this, I think this under the circumstances that I'm seeing here, I think this makes sense. But partly based upon your financials, partly based upon your commitment, partly based upon your reputation, partly based upon the product that you're putting out there. So that's kind of where I'm at on the issue. But I can say that the application was completed in its entirety, and I did review it. And at the time, when I asked for that, when I was a trustee, the response was, go to the clerk's office and actually review it, because that financial information is there, and putting it out in a public packet, we're basically putting out tax returns. That's certainly an issue at the federal level right now that we're talking about. So I think there's a process that makes sense, but it's one that, in this case, I'm going to be supporting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannon. A couple quick questions. In the letter that Mr. Pearl has shown us with the different criteria, it first lists 6 points of criteria. Have all 6 of those been met, or can we at least clarify which points maybe haven't been met that we would be looking over at this point?
Well, the first one says that the township will recommend to the MLCC approval of the transfer of the Class C, but that has to happen after the vote, so we would do that. And within your packet, there is a resolution that has to be filled out, and I'll make sure that that document gets to the state, and then that allows him, the applicant, to apply to the state. So this is a little different than how we normally do applications for transfers. They go to the state first, but the state then on these quota licenses has us manage it. If we approve it, then he takes that resolution.
And just for the purposes of our discussion, I don't need an explanation on each. I trust you. If you say that
Okay.
the 6 have been met, I'll go with that. But
Not all 6 have met. 2 is the one that, the second one, it states that if it at any time there are consecutive days of higher than 90, that, in other words, if he closes his business, the way that liquor licensing works is when it's actually a property right. And so without this reversion clause, Mr. Heinzman can take that, if he were to go out of business, take that with him and go anywhere he wants. He could put it in escrow. And when I say anywhere he wants, within the county, Macomb County only, because you can't transfer liquor licenses across county lines. So he can utilize that maybe in another way. However, because we're giving it away and we want these to be used as economic tools, we created this reversion clause that says if you don't make it and you're ever out of business, this would come back to the township and come back into our quota status. That's what we're asking, and he's willing to do that. So I think that shows a good position on his part. 3, the applicant also agrees that the license will revert if work represented to be done is not commenced within the 30 days. So that one really doesn't apply. He has already invested. He's been there for 6 years. Is that correct?
3.5.
Oh, 3 years. Okay, sorry. He's already made that investment. So in a way, and he said he's invested $45,000 already. So in a way, he's met that criteria further down, which asks for a financial investment. And then he agrees to not transfer the license outside of the charter township of Clinton. So he signed this, and this reversion clause, which is another reason why I think that he's committed to this township. So to answer your question.
I'm very confused. And Mr. Dolan, I don't know if you can enlighten me on this.
I think what you've gone over, Kim, are the provisions within the agreement that's the reversion agreement. I think what Mr. Keys is referring to is the criteria that's set forth at the top of the application form. There is criteria that we review that are utilized in conjunction with determining whether or not to grant the quota license. I don't have that form in front of me, but I believe that the form sets forth criteria as well as having that question.
Yeah, the 48, I believe I don't have it here in this part. I gave back his application. There is the financial commitment that he has met already by opening his business and making that $40,000 to $45,000 investment. And then the other criteria, Mr. Pearl, did you say you had that up on your phone?
Yeah, well, you've kind of changed the agreement.
I changed it? How did I change it?
There's, let's see, is item 2 in there? Well, I think it's in there. The agreement seems to be similar. The revision, you're talking about the revision. that
Reversion.
comes back to us.
Reversion clause. mhm.
Revision.
What we're trying to have addressed are the criteria that are at
Yes.
the top of the application, Mr. Kroll, with respect to conditions of issuance.
Yeah.
In looking at the application, there's 6 points of criteria and 13 required documents. I just want to be told that all of those have been met, and if they haven't, and we have the opportunity to overlook some of them and weigh other options, then that's fine. I just want to know what I'm weighing as a trustee. And
Can't
for-
waive them. We can waive them. You can make any motion you would like, but.
I just don't know what to waive because I don't know what he's met. And, furthermore, just while Ms. Meltzer's looking at Mr. Gilliam, I thought that summary was great, but when I look at this item, there's no approval from your office. I see one from building, fire, planning, and police, but you don't have a form like they do. Is there a reason that you're not built into that approval path?
He is in the packet. He's in the Laserfish packet, so.
So like,
If it didn't come, I'm not
But to
sure why.
clarify, we don't approve.
Okay.
We review, and we make sure that it meets the standards that are set forth. We then provide that information to the clerk's office. I do not manage the liquor license process.
and that's the
managed
same,
by the
correct,
clerk.
for the building department, fire, planning, and police? They're not recommending anything to us. They're telling us that they've met a certain criteria. I'm just wondering, it's great that you were able to make us aware of your way of thinking. I would just hope that in the future that was built in here as well.
Yeah, I don't recall filling out a form, but I did communicate with Ms.
Through
Meltzer's office.
Laserfish, through, Stephanie, you know?
Oh, right.
Before, the police department would
Okay.
check the
I think I have
outstanding debt or taxes. And the
Stephanie.
police department would- The police department before, that we just changed it like this last 2 weeks, on their criteria, the one part would say outstanding taxes, debt, so there would be a check mark. That was just taken out where your, one of your clerks filled it out for us now. And it just started.
So basically, I reviewed it, and I said,
Yeah.
yes, this looks good to me. Ms. Meltzer, here are my notes, and my staff communicated
Got it.
with
So it's probably why it wasn't
the
in this
clerk's
packet
office.
right now, because like a
Understood.
transit. But also, I wanted to mention that checklist that you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, there, after all the inspections that are done, the administrative secretary or staff secretary and Ms. Meltzer gets, basically, I just copied it, that list, saying, okay, all the inspections are done. Is this list completed? And she just puts yes or no, or we just submit it. Now, if you guys want to make sure that it's, I can have it where it's going to be in the packet now, once it's reviewed. But there is a form that says it's all in there, it's all been checked.
And do you know that it's all in there for this one? Do we have the 13 documents and the
Right,
6
and a lot
points
of
of
that,
criteria?
the reason is because of the personal information that it's not in
Right.
there. Like she has the option of, I mean, we don't want to hold those people's financial records,
Mm-hmm.
but just having an indication that we have it is in the records management part, which is not seen to everybody, but it is in there listed.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you for
But I
that.
mean,
Thanks,
we can do that checklist, we can forward it as,
We can, yeah.
Put it in
I
the
can read it
agenda.
really quick. Taxes have been current for the previous 3 years, yes. No ordinance or code violations for the previous 3 years, right? He has not. Verification of economic development in the community documenting $40,000 investment within a 36-month period preceding the application. He has done that. Verification that 75% of usable floor space is devoted to dining. That, he meets that. It's actually 100%. Executed agreement regarding issuance or transfer of a Class C liquor license known as a reversion agreement. He has signed that. And 6, each applicant shall furnish a narrative explaining and not exceeding 10 pages, which thankfully he did not, kept it to 1 page, which I read at the beginning of this item. And then it explained the nature of the business in terms of a theme, food, entertainment, the layout. He didn't really go into layout, but I don't think that's an issue. The total employment, how many employees do you have, sir? 12 employees. Investment in refurbishing or rebuilding a new facility broken down by category does not apply. His total investment is in the application, and that was, as he stated, $40,000 to $45,000 initially. Previous experience in any similar facility, he did mention that as well, as he was the owner of the Heidelberg. Was it the Heidelberg? Yes. And then expected commencement and completion dates of improvements doesn't really apply. He's not doing any improvements at this time, but he is specialized in training and experience in the bar and food industry. He does not have any prior liquor license violations for any facility in which the applicant has owned or had an interest, and there are no previous lawsuits, whether dram shops or other, including creditor disputes of applicant owners and former entities, no prior bankruptcies, and each topic must be addressed, which it was in the application.
And so we're not waiving any criteria. It was all provided.
So the
That's what I'm
criteria-
trying to make sure.
Right.
The
So
investment part.
No. It's the reversion clause. The reversion clause was the issue. Well, and it could be some of these criteria. I mean, we have the authority to do that, and if you guys felt that that was necessary, we could. It's just never been done before. And, here, Kim, thank you. And so I had no, I sent this over, I talked to Mr. Gilliam about it, and I was really grateful. He put a nice letter together, kind of showing his perspective, kind of his business experience and where he thought this business was, where it came from and, what he thought, what the future might be for him. And then he also made those recommendations. Well, let's see, what expectations can we have to show that this applicant can show us they're committed to Clinton Township. And so I went back to Mr. Heinzman and I said, is there anything you can do? What about your lease agreement? You only have 2 years left. 2 years is a very short window. You could take that license and take off. Can you show me that you can maybe have a longer lease agreement? He took care of it within a day. He added 5 years. So he did that. And I think, what was the other criteria you wanted? Oh, I just said, what is the likelihood of you investing any more money than what he already had? And Mr. Gilliam and I said, based on what his financials were, we didn't think that that was an expectation we could ask. But we also talked about the fact that that strip mall that he is in has been empty. He's the only one that has survived there because he has a phenomenal product. And if we don't give this license, as he has stated, he is probably not going to be able to manage to stay there because he needs to, this product needs to complement what he serves. And as such, that would mean that whole strip mall is empty, and I'd hate to see that. So he's got a great product. He served this community top notch, and I think he's definitely worthy of a license.
It seems like every criteria has been met, and I agree with Mrs. Meltzer, and Mr. Pearl has one item, and then we'll move on.
I don't want to belabor this, but
You never gave us the floor.
do you still have something?
Yeah, no, Mr. Pearl has the floor. If you need the floor again, you can have it.
Okay, thank you.
You're talking about the reversion agreement. Okay, that's one page. All I'm saying is, the agreement is 27 pages, okay, the application.
The application,
Okay,
yeah. Mhm.
did he fill out, and this is what you want to know.
That's it.
Did he fill out 27 pages?
Yes.
And the board only saw, some of us trustees only saw a couple comments?
Correct.
Okay, and not
Correct.
even Mr. Gilliam?
You have the prerogative to come in and take a look at any of those
No,
financials anytime you like.
We used to get it emailed to us. We used to actually get it sent to us in a packet, but I didn't want the paperwork, so they emailed it to us. You could email it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Then we could read it and not have paper.
So is that, are you requesting that be emailed to you on just the quota licenses or on all transfers?
Just the new ones.
Well,
Just giving away.
transfers new, some licenses that are
Not a
transferred are new.
But ones
So
that we're giving away free.
That's fine. Yeah, I can make
Okay.
that happen. That's no
I
problem.
would want to be assured that this gentleman in his fine restaurant filled out a 27-page application in the process, then it
He
went
did.
through all the
It's this big.
reviews.
Yeah.
It's this big. I got
Okay.
it right over here if you want to see it. I'd love to show you.
We wish,
I
yeah.
spent a lot of time on it, a lot of money. If
I
you want to
just,
see it,
the next
I will
person
show
that,
you every paper.
I'm not complaining.
The next person's
The
gonna
next
be
person that
2
comes up
minutes.
here, I want him to have to go through the same thing, the same criteria. And I just didn't want to hear that we sidestepped everything to issue this.
We didn't sidestep
Okay,
anything,
that
actually.
everything you're saying as clerk, and it's your responsibility
Yes,
to give this to us.
Yes, sir.
That the 27 pages was filled out.
yes, sir.
Because you only saw the first few, you didn't go on and on and on. And everything
Right.
was done and everything was met to the best.
Yes,
that
and
he
you
could.
can, at any time, like I stated, anytime you want to discuss this issue, you are welcome to contact my office, and I'm more than happy to discuss it.
I'm not
am very-
against the restaurant, I just
Yeah.
want to make sure the process was followed.
I just don't
I'm
like
sorry it took so long. to get
people's
there.
investment information being out there and their financials out there.
But you
to
could
the
send
public.
them to us, we get confidential
I
memos
understand, but,
all the time,
I'd rather you come in and get it, or just call me with questions.
She's
Like I
being
said,
protective
it's,
of his.
We'll get it
his
maybe
rights.
a lot of
on
personal information.
Friday sometimes, the backup, you know.
Something new.
Yeah, something, I think that one thing that we're overseeing here, and I really appreciate what you said, Mr. Gilliam and Ms. Meltzer, about we had some criteria that we wanted to see. You wanted to see a longer lease, and but those aren't just your two's decisions. Us four maybe would have thought something different and said, well, no, we really don't need that long-term lease. That's why those items need to be brought here and discussed. And we need to follow the policy and the process so that way we don't feel that people are jumping ahead of us and we're not getting all the information. This is no reflection on you and your business. Like you said, you filled out the forms. And I appreciate you being here tonight to talk about why you want this in our community and in your business. But this idea that we shouldn't be getting confidential information because, Ms. Meltzer, you would prefer us to come to your office is just not how this board should operate. And if you would prefer we make a motion to request that all confidential information be sent to board members, I'd be happy to do that because I'm sick of chasing information in this township. I want it sent to me so I can make an educated decision. We went through this with the Miss Mary's restaurant. You ended up emailing me all of that because I called you and said, I don't have time to come in right now. I need you to email it to me so I can review it at home. And you did. And so why we're not continuing that process, I don't understand. And I would hope that in the future, this board can receive all confidential information. That's why we have an administrative assistant who's able to handle confidential information and get it to us. It's not your decision to keep that from us and for us to have to go into your office and sit with you and review it. It's just not fair to us.
Well, you could, like I said, if you want the information, I'm definitely happy to give it to you, but, with the warning that please, make sure none of this information is
And I
exposed in any
appreciate
way.
that.
And like I said, if you ask, just like you did, ask me about the other restaurant, I gave it to you. But as a rule, we are, the full-time officials are given more latitude in terms, because we have more responsibility as a trustee. You're here part-time, and maybe that makes it harder to access that information. So,
Only when you
feel
keep it
free.
hostage. I need you to send it to us.
I'm not keeping anything hostage.
That's what I need.
You have access to it.
That was
All right, I
fully
appreciate it.
available to any one of us who
Yes.
wanted it.
No, not Mr. Pearl.
I'm ready to make a motion to approve the request.
Second.
But just real quick, Mr. Heinzman, when you went and paid the taxes, did you pay that by check or did you pay it in cash or certified funds?
Check.
A check, okay. So I want to put the caveat on there because it sometimes takes 10 days for a check to clear. So that was one of the things that Ms. Meltzer and I talked about, conditional approval
That was
based
last-
upon,
That was last week, I'm sorry.
yep. So it's not a full 10 business days, and so
You want to make it a
approval
contingent upon that?
contingent upon the check clearing
Okay, yeah.
and notification when we confirm it with the county treasurer's office.
That's correct.
Okay. And then just one last point that I want to make, and that is the reverter clause of 90 days, I don't think is long enough in this process. Palm Palace, when that came up many, many years ago, we looked at their applications, we looked at the restaurants that they owned, we looked at what went down, what survived, and I argued at the time that it was dominoes. As soon as one failed, all the rest of them were going to fail, and clear enough,
But I'm
it
by
failed.
myself.
We got that liquor license reverted back to us because of that agreement.
Yes.
And I would like to see a longer reverter clause, and I would say a year and a half to 2 years.
Well, as a commit, we do have a liquor license committee. If you'd like, we can set up a meeting and discuss that.
But we
And then
could make
bring
it,
back to
if
the board
Mr.
you like.
Heinzman's in
Oh, you said we
agreement,
didn't
we
have
could
a
make it a part of that
committee.
motion.
So you want to make it, well,
It's basically a
you're telling
request
him,
that
yeah,
we're adding
but
this.
he's, okay, I understand that, and I appreciate it, but I guess you're asking him, he's at the mercy of this board, and he's going to say yes to whatever you say. So I don't think it's really fair to him to put that out there when he's complied with every single thing we've asked of him, and I don't think, changing the rules of the game in the middle of the game is fair. If you would like to, we can discuss it, but let's put it, we have a liquor commission committee to address those changes, and we can do that.
We did add the reverter clause on Palm Palace at the board meeting when it was approved. And it was because it was a discussion at the board meeting between the owner or the proprietors and
Oh, no,
this board.
I've got, email after email with this person, getting them written commitment that they were going to do the reversion clause. So maybe you didn't, because you at the time
It
you were
was
a
put in-
trustee.
it was put in
Maybe you
as
didn't
a
realize
motion.
it, but there was a lot going on behind the
Can I
scenes
ask
on
a
that.
question?
Yeah.
How many other people have signed that paper that I've signed?
One.
How many other restaurants? One. Okay, just to let everybody know that.
A lot.
Okay, I'm one of the only people to have said that they would give up their license if their business closed for 90 days. I thought that was a lot. And I thought you guys would be asking me, what are you gonna do to keep the public safe? You're getting a liquor license. I thought that's what your concerns were.
Yeah.
I owned a liquor license for 11 years, not one violation. That's the big thing. I'm experienced in this. I've done
Mr.
it.
Gillingham, why are
We
you
don't
changing-
want you to close and then sell the license.
That is not-
It says 90 days.
Right.
Now you want me to sign something
But the
else?
120 gives them more time.
I know.
Why are you doing that?
Again, you guys-
90 days is,
Should we please get this?
if his business
Let's
is
talk
closed
about
for 90
this
days,
at a
it
committee.
reverts back.
You always want to go to a
90 days.
committee.
So what do you,
I do.
I got you. I
it's
got
the
you.
reverse of what you.
I know,
Yes,
that's why I
right,
said, let's.
Right,
That's why I
exactly.
couldn't figure out
I
where you
know
were
what he's
going.
meaning,
Yep.
though.
Yep,
So
I
we're
know what he
okay with
meant.
this.
yes. If it's closed for more, for 90 days or more, then it reverts back automatically. There's no
Yes.
time limit on that. I got it. Okay. I misread that.
We have one member of the community who wishes to speak.
Sam Bushel, 18547 Wayland. In this matter, I have no problem with the restaurant or as he turns it into, with the liquor license. What I do have a problem with is we have 7 board members. We pay, as taxpayers, we're paying 7 of you. And if 4 of you who aren't getting the information because the full-timers don't think you're trustworthy, and you're going to vote on something for us that you're supposed to be protecting us, the citizens, that is the most ridiculous thing. I have never heard, there again, look at what a trustee does, look what you're sworn to do. If you're not getting the information because the full-timers don't trust you to keep it confidential, well, it's confidential information, but you're supposed to protect us. You're not doing your job if you vote on this without getting all the information first.
All the information has been provided. Roll call, please.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
I'm going to vote yes because I've been assured the
Yes or no?
application's been filled out. So, yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes. Congratulations.
With the board's concurrence, I'd like to switch around numbers 9 and 10 as the petitioner.
I would ask that, Mr. Cannon, this gentleman here, this is just a transfer of an existing license. It
Oh,
should
okay.
take 5 minutes. He's been very patient.
Okay.
Could I just?
Yes.
Thank you. Dear board members, applicant Dollar Bills LLC located at 136 South River Road, Clinton Township, Michigan, 48038 has successfully fulfilled the requirements per the building department, the fire department, as well as the police background check and payments of the application fees necessary to acquire a liquor license transfer. Based on this fulfillment of requirements, Dollar Bills LLC requests approval of a conditional license upon C of O from this honorable board. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Sincerely, Kim Meltzer. So this applicant has a license presently, but you are not operating at this time. Can you come to the microphone? Okay. And state your name and address for the record.
My name is William Barber, 38640 Lakeshore, in Harrison Township.
So you have a conditional license right now, which means you can operate, but you are not at this time? Is that correct?
Yep, correct.
Okay. Okay. So this is a transfer of both a Class C and an SDM license.
All the paperwork's taken
All
care
the
of?
paperwork is in, yes.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes, motion passes. You're all set.
I'm
Congratulations.
Going to bring item 10 to the board. Request approval of Ethics Board bylaws and forms as the petitioner, not petitioner, as the presenter teaches a class at Macomb. And the Plant Moran study may take quite some time.
Okay, thank you. Dan Maher, 19706 Westchester Drive. I'm here in my capacity as the chairperson of the Ethics Committee. And as Mr. Cannon stated, we're here to request approval of our operating procedures bylaws, the complaint form, and the request for advisory opinion form. By way of background, the Ethics Committee was established pursuant to the ethics policy that the township enacted earlier this year. The Ethics Committee essentially is established to perform 2 functions. One is to respond to complaints. Complaints can be submitted by any individual. There is a a process to determine whether that complaint alleges a justified violation of the ethics policy. There are a number of procedures around how those complaints will be handled, basically allowing for the requirement that the form has got to provide a clear summary of the facts, a clear explanation of the perceived violation, and indication of any other relevant facts to the situation. The individual that's filing the complaint, along with the respondent, will have an opportunity to identify witnesses and other folks to support their case. And ultimately, a hearing is held before the Ethics Committee. We basically listen to the evidence presented, have an opportunity to request additional information, and ultimately then confer and subsequently issue a finding or conclusion on that complaint. That finding is to be provided to the board as an advisory opinion only. We have no authority or ability to actually undertake any specific action on behalf of the township. The second category of activity involves a request for advisory opinion, which is essentially a request that's submitted by a township official to request our view as to whether a potential or theoretical type of arrangement would be a perceived violation of the ethics policy. We have the meetings will be open to the public, and as part of our operating procedures, we're proposing to adopt the policy for public comments as an appendix to our bylaws, same policy that the board has in place. Any questions that I can help with?
Mrs. Meltzer?
For clarification, so I had sent the amended public comment card out to you guys, and I thought we were going to be getting it back, but my understanding is you are approving it as it is right now without those changes, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So we will have to put that on the agenda for the next board meeting. Then would you then come back and adopt that?
Be happy to.
Okay.
Our thought was, let's request for approval what's currently in place. To the extent that the board makes changes, we'll follow along.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here today to give your presentation. I'll be quick because I know you have a class. When we talk about the complaint process and a complaint is made, and then you as the chair have to determine if it's a valid complaint, correct?
Yes,
To
I
bring
have
it.
to determine whether the complaint meets all the requirements that are provided in the form. That's correct.
And then at that point, you would bring it to your committee or commission, and it would be discussed, as the bylaws dictate.
By and large, yes. The committee needs to establish a hearing date and so forth.
Have you thought about what type of record keeping you would be doing if you determine that it is not a proper complaint? Is that still something you would keep as a record for your commission, or is there some database that you would collect that information? How do you foresee that information being collected?
In terms of record keeping, I absolutely would retain the original complaint filed. I think that there's also a requirement that we respond to the complainant as to where their form or where their complaint was deemed inadequate and give them an opportunity to correct the filing.
Great, okay. And then I did have one more question on here. Let me find it, though. If anyone else has questions, they can go in. No?
I'm fine. Thank you for volunteering.
Okay?
Yes, thank you.
My pleasure. Mike, anything else?
The only other thing I had is when it came up legal counsel, obviously, Mr. Dolan, you're going to be the legal counsel for this commission, correct?
That's what's in here.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you've reviewed these bylaws?
I've reviewed the bylaws and the proposed policies and forms.
Okay. The only other suggestion I have or concern that I see is obviously you'll be operating under Robert's Rules of Order. I can see when you're dealing with a volunteer committee that can sometimes be hard. And so at any point, I would encourage you to look at actually adopting your own board rules that would allow you to be a little bit more flexible and easier to communicate to the public and your board members what rules are actually going on. I remember when I first got elected, they handed me a real thick Robert's Rules of Order book, and it can be a struggle. But when you adopt your own board rules, it becomes a lot more clear.
Okay, point well taken. Thank you.
Further comments or questions? We have someone in the community.
Hi, I'm Peter Viviano. It's 38374 Saddle Lane in Clinton Township. I have a question, two questions. First question, who appoints the board?
The Ethics Board?
Yes.
This Board of Trustees, we set out an application to the community for 2 months, I believe, and we had applicants, and then this board voted on.
And my other question is, what constitutes ethics violation? Like, is it, how much information you need? Is it, like, if it's an apparent, like, let's say, circumstance, just hypothetically, like Joe goes to a restaurant after a meeting and he dines with a group of people that were lobbying for a balloted issue, and that's like unethical on the face value.
Here's the
But
answer.
you need more in-depth.
If you think it's unethical, you're going to fill out the form and you're going to submit it to this 3-person panel, and then they will take a look at it and give you a response.
Just, so that I don't need a pattern of, there's no like standard for evidence, basically. It just could go as a hypothetical, it didn't look right.
Mr. Cannon, can I help out?
Mr. Dolan?
Yeah, the rules of the Ethics Committee are all public, so you can get a copy of those. The policy that the township has and the standards that they've adopted as part of their ethics is all public information, and you can get a copy of that. The forms that they're referring to, those are all, again, public. So all that information is available publicly, and you can get copies of it.
Okay, thank you. It basically mirrors the ethics bylaws that you passed, that I've read those already.
Right, and these are bylaws of the committee that has to work with those rules and handle the complaints and so on. They've now got their bylaws that are a public document. They've got an application process, as was outlined, that's all public. You can take a look at all that.
Thank you. To answer my questions, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Looking for a receive and file?
So moved.
Support.
Oh,
Bob Hogan, Clinton Township. Are the dates and times of the meetings, and in fact, all the meetings, are they anywhere on the website?
Yes.
Yeah.
This one will be on the website
Yes.
also?
Yes.
Where about on the website?
Stephanie?
It's not on the main page.
They're on the township calendar right now.
Mhm.
According to the policy, we have,
Yeah, come on.
and don't forget to mention the trustees calendar.
they are located on the trustees calendar. They are also located currently, this last meeting we just had was on the township calendar. According to the policy, we have 3 days to meet after a complaint is filed. In order to comply with the Roberts rules, like Mike had mentioned, the meetings are then posted on the bulletin board right up here in the lobby of the Civic Center, along with the agenda for all of our meetings. If there is in order to comply with that 3-day, sometimes there's not enough notice to put them on the township calendar because that's only put out monthly. So they will always be posted on the bulletin board, and otherwise, for our monthly meetings, they will be posted on all of the township calendars on the website.
The bulletin board means a document in here, or a
Correct.
bulletin board on a
The bulletin
website?
board on the Civic Center right out here in the front lobby.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Roll call?
I'm sorry, the motion maker was Keys, and who second? Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. Item 9, presentation of Plant Moran and their review with the record analyst.
Okay, let me find it. Dear board members, in response to board action at the August 12, 2019 board meeting, Plant Moran is here tonight to give their presentation and recommendation regarding the request to hire an additional records analyst. Based on these findings, it would be the board's prerogative to approve their recommendation. A timely determination is necessary to allow each department the ability to budget accordingly for the upcoming 2020-21 fiscal year, should the Board of Trustees approve. Thank you, Kim Meltzer, Township Clerk. And Lori, if you would introduce, or
So I'm
your...
Lori Hoos, I was the project manager on the project. I have a very short agenda here. I'm going to go through just the approach that we use as part of the project, give you a summary, talk about the key findings, and then also our key recommendations from the report that was presented. Then we'll talk about Mrs. Meltzer will talk about next steps, and then we'll have time for Q&A, but certainly if you have questions, feel free. So we started off, the team came in and spent for a couple days on site, meeting for about an hour, half an hour to an hour with representatives from each of the departments.
Lori, I'm sorry, Lori, is there any way to lift that microphone up a little bit? There you go.
Sorry.
Is that better? I think so, thank you.
We talked to them about if they were using Laserfish currently, if so, how, and if their level of satisfaction with it, if there were other opportunities to use it further within their department. We then went back, we talked to the vendor, we talked to a peer community that also uses the product and put together a report with our findings and our recommendations, met with the clerk and the deputy clerk to make sure that it was all factually correct, made a few minor modifications, and then submitted the report in final. And so just to go through our key findings, related to items 1 and 2. So the clerk's processes are a little bit more mature than some of the other departments. They were done as a pilot, and many of those processes involve licenses or inspections, and so they involve other departments within the township. For all of the individuals that were a part of those clerk processes, those users were very happy with the workflows and happy with the process. In fact, others had heard that those workflows worked so well that made them excited about the opportunity to use it in their own department. So for those workflows that were done as part of that pilot, they are working very well and have very positive response. Not all of the departments are fully on Laserfish outside of the clerk's office. A couple of departments have some documents online, some have none. And we found that the township did not have the internal resources to properly roll out Laserfish for the rest of the township. And kind of to go back, the initial part of the initial review or the assessment, we were asked if we thought that there was a warrant for another position to help support the system. And that was part of what we were looking at, as well as just the general use of the system. And so we did find that the township does lack the internal resources to finish this rollout in terms of getting all of the rest of the departments fully on board in the system. In addition, tying into number 3, the current environment is very heavily reliant on the current records analyst, which is just one person. So this does present a challenge from risk mitigation, if she were to leave the township, as well as just issues with backfill, like if she might want to take a vacation or if she's sick. Going on to number 5, some departments, some of the ones that have started their initial implementation, there are some challenges that they're having. Some of them are skeptical to solely rely on Laserfish for their document management and would have some additional work to do to be fully on board with the system. And then finally, there is not a clear plan currently to get the rest of the departments on board. I think this ties back into number 3, where there really isn't the ability to put a dedicated resource towards this implementation. And I'll pause for a minute and just kind of talk about the difference between much of what the current records analyst is doing is really ongoing maintenance operations. And what we're talking about here with the implementation is really more of a one-time project. So you've got this initial setup where you've got to have the departments identify their documents, identify what types of documents they want to put, set up these workflows, that's the technical component to that, and then really do the scanning to get the bulk of that back document in the system. That really is very much a one-time process. And then once the workflows are created and you have new documents coming, they can feed through that existing process. Issues still come up. There's still a need for support. There's still a need for tweaks and modifications to it. But for the most part, a lot of that initial legwork is done up front. And so the initial request, to my understanding, was the thought that maybe if we brought somebody on, that person could help get the rest of the township online using the system. And that really takes me to the recommendations. As an overall, we agree that the resources aren't in place to do that. However, we did differ and have a slight modification in our recommendation, which was we don't think that the township would be best served by hiring an additional person right now. And in addition to that, when that time comes, we believe that the role should be tweaked just a little bit. Again, going back to the idea that what we're looking at now is more of a project, more of a one-time effort. We think that the township would be better served by having the vendor come in, or a vendor that supports the system come in to help with that initial rollout and that initial implementation, again, because of that one-time nature. Once you have more of the township on board using the system, that's going to put additional workload in that support mechanism for that records analyst, and there most likely will be a need for additional resources to support the system. And so our key recommendation is hold off on the hiring for now, bring in a third party to help with the implementation, get the rest of the township departments on board, then at that point down the road, hire an additional resource, but not quite the one that was proposed, a little bit of a tweak to more of a supportive role than an implementation role. And I can take more questions on that in a moment. A couple other more minor recommendations. One is just additional training. We would see that as being a key component of that implementation process, both for the departments that aren't using it yet, as well as the ones who are maybe using it, but not fully, just to help with that refresher. It's been some time since they received it. New staff have come to the township, and just having that refresher will be helpful. As well as some of the frustrations, and then there are some technical challenges as well that need to be worked through. But some of the frustrations from the department are because of the quality of the scanning coming from some third parties, or potentially even with the scanning in-house. And there just needs to be a step in there and education on the departments to know what to be looking for before they upload their documents, and make sure that pages aren't missing and they're in the right order. So that quality control step is important. And then finally, creating a formal implementation plan that shows all of the departments when they would be up next, what the timing is, how long it will take, really so that they understand it's not just, yes, you'll get them at some point, but they can actually see where it is that they're expected to go and how long that will take. So overall, those are the recommendations. Before I move on to next steps, are there any questions about any of our findings or any of the recommendations?
Mr. Pearl? I just had a quick opening statement. It won't be as long as the liquor license question. Thank you, Lori, for coming tonight and making the presentation. I'm glad Platt Moran agreed to take this on. I met with our clerk, Ms. Meltzer, a while ago, and we talked about our concerns about hiring another full-time person, and I asked for a review, and she agreed to go along with this. So I think what you're saying, and I did call you about this, and we talked for a few minutes about each of your recommendations. Thank you for that time. I agree that the rollout would be complete with a vendor, and I hope it's General Code, the initial vendor for Laserfish. And I think that would be cheaper than bringing somebody in. I agree with that recommendation. And I'm glad you identified the concerns of the department heads and put it all together, so that, you're right, additional training would be important. And I don't think our full-time person has time to do any of that. I agree. It's important what she's doing to maintain the system and do the workflows and stuff. And there's not time to do all the rest. So I think while the clerk's office has all these forms and everything pretty well down, the rest of the departments are left out there. And there just isn't time, as you found out, to bring them on board fully. And I understand Laserfish has a lot more capabilities than we're being used right now. So I don't think that we paid that much for the software, so I think the training would be, the training and the rollout would be much more cost-effective than bringing a full-time person at this time. Maybe we need somebody later on once the system's operating. One of my other concerns that you've identified too, and we talked about, was the security that our IT director has some concerns about. Eventually, I'd like to have this online for residents, but he's objecting to being at our own server. So we have to figure out, and you said that Laserfish has a problem right now with their system going to a separate cloud server?
So it's my understanding, and I'll let Brian from General Code speak more specifically to this, but it's my understanding that, the IT director had concerns about the customer portal going live while the Laserfish product is in the township's network, and so residing on an on-premise server in the township. The solution to that is to go to a software as a service or a cloud solution, and that way you're putting that cybersecurity risk and need for support on the vendor to take care and make sure they're protecting their network and it's not touching the township's network in the same manner. It's my understanding, and again, I'll let Brian talk more specifically, there is a SaaS product that they do have, but for some reason, they weren't ready to have it be in use at the township. I don't know if it was a version issue or a capacity or load. I can't answer that, but it's my understanding the IT director did reach out to them and say, we'd like to explore the SaaS solution, and that he was told that they weren't ready to do that yet, and I don't know the specifics.
Yeah, because even the state of Michigan has portals for contractors that want to fill out permits online and licenses, and Secretary of State has that. I mean, there's a lot that we should have. Other communities
Certainly.
have done it.
And the
So-
software functionality is there, to my understanding, to allow you to do that today. But anytime you open up your network to outside, you're creating an environment where you could potentially be at a cybersecurity risk. And so your IT director is just risk averse and wanting to create that scenario for the township.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to, once everybody's finished, I'm going to recommend that this go to Budget Ways and Means to get a quote from General Code, if that's the right vendor to finish this up, to get it rolled out completely. So thank you.
You can put that motion on the floor, and we can still discuss it.
Okay, I'll move that we send this to Budget Ways and Means to request a quote from General Code.
Support.
The floor is still open for you to finish.
Thank you. Mrs. Meltzer, did you want to speak to what your thoughts are in terms of next steps?
Yes, first of all, Lori, thank you so much. You and Amy were great to work with, and I appreciate your availability. I know it was kind of hard to track me down a lot of times. The clerk's office is a very busy department, and I'm pulled into a million different directions, so I appreciate your patience, and I appreciate your perspective on this. I agree with what you're saying. Based on the information that we submitted to you, we are having a hard time, and our initial solution was to get another person, so I appreciate Mr. Pearl coming forward and kind of working with me on that and saying maybe there's another, way we can deal with this. And so, when we reached out to you, that was very helpful. And I agree that eventually we will need another person because of that risk mitigation. If, to have only one person that can control and know how to use our system, Laserfish system, kind of puts us in a precarious position if that person ever wants to take a vacation or maybe even move on. So we'd want a seamless transition if that ever took place and any of those criteria took place. And so I think it is important to have somebody, but we don't necessarily have to get that person right now. And General Code, who is our vendor, who sold us the Laserfish product, and who Brian Fatka, who is here, who will speak in a few moments, to some of the concerns and the things that we want to evolve into, I think is a great, choice in terms of how we want to move forward. Now, that said, I recommended, that when I talked to Mr. Pearl, that we do take this to Budget Ways and Means because there are criteria that Mr. Fatka is going to speak about which address two different versions at the very least of how we want to move forward. And that would be, do we hire somebody from New York there, and there's a fee for that, and that's rolled out within maybe a shorter period of time, higher cost, or do we want to hire people right from General Code and maybe take a couple extra weeks to, roll this whole thing out and provide the training and so on. So training is very critical in terms of what we need to move forward. And like I said, I would like to hear from Mr. Fatka here shortly when you're done. But I think everything that you guys have highlighted, the key findings and the steps that we should take next are spot on. And I really am grateful. And it was great to work with you.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you ready? Yeah.
Just, so did the report, so I didn't see this in the report, so I'm wondering if this was part of the scope or not, but the idea behind this is to have records management, one, maintain compliance with state law, right? Two, find efficiency, find cost savings. And that's been long and sort of out there in the woods, driver of this that really hasn't ever materialized. And so have you, was that part of the scope of the study to say, how does this make us more efficient? Where are the cost savings? And when can we expect them?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. We did not get into any sort of formal ROI, mainly, to be honest with you, because you'd already purchased the system, had it for a few years now, and you've already started implementing it. So we don't really have a good baseline, if you will, to look at that. Should you have gone with it, would it have created efficiencies? However.
And I wouldn't want you to look back. I wouldn't, I guess I'm more concerned about what we have now.
Yeah, so certainly today, you are paying for a very good product, a very robust product. And as was mentioned earlier, you're not using it to its fullest capabilities. There are certainly lots of opportunities throughout the township to create more efficiencies and get more bang for your buck, if you will, and just make better use of this product that has a lot of capabilities. And there is a vision there as well. You have a strong advocate and sponsor in Clerk Meltzer, who really wants to see much more of this implemented. And so I do think there are lots of opportunities at the township to really take advantage of it more.
But how much do we have to spend getting there?
Well, that is a question for Brian. I can turn it over to him if you guys are ready.
Please, thank you so much, Lori.
I preempted my question for his presentation.
So Brian Patka is your title. I guess you're just
Solutions Account Executive.
You're the man. You have been so great with working with us with Laserfish. I've always been there as a great support. And Mr. Patka is here to talk about what they have to offer in terms of this in training and getting the departments up and running and getting some kind of initial wins, some quick wins. We do, and I want to give accolades and really let everybody know that Stephanie has done a great job in building business processes. She has a real good handle on Laserfish and how it works, and that is a real niche market. And so we're very grateful to have her and her working in that capacity. And I just wanted to do a shout out as well. But take it away. Tell us how you're going to be able to help us segue into moving Laserfish forward.
Yeah, no, so thank you for having me back in front of you all. I appreciate it. I'm going to blow through this stuff really fast, but just for any of you who don't remember as much about Laserfish, General Code as a Laserfish reseller, we are working with we're actually closer to 500 public sector customers right now. So when it comes to these processes that you want built out, we have a lot of customers that we're already doing it with. Mr. Pearl, to your comment earlier about the state and different counties that have these types of systems online already, they're our customers. Lansing, Eaton, Emmett County, they use Laserfish, and it's public facing. And it's using the on-premise system, not a cloud system. It's just a matter of securing your environment to the best of the ability. So that capability is all there, and we've done it. So we're there, we're able to help. Because we've worked with so many, one of the things that General Code brings is, in the report, we talked about, or Plant Moran mentioned a bunch of processes that we could do right here at Clinton. But General Code, having worked with so many, we have some processes, and you see a few listed there, that we've already pre-built that we use with communities, go in and tweak it to fit exactly what works for you. That brings the process development time down. It makes it a little bit quicker and easier to implement. Now, the consultation process that Clerk Meltzer was talking about earlier, to get all of this started, for us to come in, general code based out of New York. If we bring someone in from New York, we can spend a few days and hammer through all of these. Or for me, if I come on site, I live right here in Wixom, I'm here in Michigan, so to come over, there's no travel costs. That's the slightly slower version based on my availability. However, what happens? We would meet with departments about specific processes, and I won't read through all that. You can see what it is we do. But again, to something you mentioned earlier, one of the things we want to do is gather labor statistics and costs as we work through what the process is that we want to automate so we can prove what will the ROI be. Because to be honest, you have purchased part of Laserfiche, but the public forms portal, and then there's another thing called the public portal. These are components that you have not purchased yet, but they provide a tremendous amount of capability. Back to what I was saying about the other places we work with, Lansing being a very important one, they have someone like Stephanie. They have people on site who build processes, but then they also contract us to do certain processes that they want kickstarted and going quickly. So this is how we do consultation, and then again, the next two main points, we create the plan and outline the new or potential new software and licensing requirements and provide all the detailed flow charts to really show you what it is we're going to do, and then of course schedule it and build it. So how that moves forward, and the last slide I put up, a couple of benefits. When we do the consultation, and it's a daily consultation rate, that's why I mentioned whether we bring someone from New York or use me here on site. But when we do the consultation that is paid, it's actually going to make your rate to develop these processes lower. So that's a huge benefit. And then, of course, full documentation. The implementation strategy is the one that I think is most important. Do we want to do this really fast? Or we usually look for find the fast wins to create buy-in. These departments that mention some things that aren't going quite so well, I've read the report, I've seen what some of those are. They look pretty easily fixable to me. But some of those fast buy-ins are really easy, simple things in the list. Clerk Meltzer and I have talked about approving attorney fees monthly. That is something that we could research, sketch out, and develop in probably 10 to 15 hours. It would not be a hard thing, but it's so simple, and it would make people see the win quickly.
Can you clarify that?
10 to 15 hours?
To develop the process, yes.
Can you explain that? You're talking about approving attorney bills.
Yes. So create an online portal where the bill could be submitted, automatically route it to the 3, possibly 4 people that need to approve it, automatically, potentially rename, store it where it needs to be stored securely, so that much like it sounded like the liquor approval process is all documented, all of that would be documented right over to be
Something
paid.
like the list of bills, Ms. Meltzer, that would be in our agenda management system, correct?
So right now, what we do for the attorney fees, we get an email from the attorneys, this is what you owe us. We print that off, hard copy, stamp the name of the 3 full-time positions on it. Then we have to look at the document, handwrite it, then I physically take it and put it under across the hallway, put it under, give it to Mr. Gilliam for the most part, and then I think you probably pass it to the supervisor. Then it has to go up to the finance department. It comes back to us, and then we take it to the finance department. So those steps, as opposed to being so physical, would be more electronic, and it would be much quicker, much easier, and really, you'll be able to see, because there is an accounting of when these processes are done. So if there's ever a question, well, when did this take place, or how come we haven't paid this bill, or, we would know right away if something fell through the cracks. So we think it's definitely a more efficient way of doing it, and so that's one of the business processes. We said they could give us an example of what they're going to build.
Process, Mr. Chairman? Just, is that the same 15 hours, Brian, for all bills? The same process, the same software? We're not talking, we're talking
Same
one.
software,
Yeah.
yes.
So what you're saying is, you're gonna develop for 15 hours software that will document every bill, could go through the same thing, right? Every bill that we pay for signing off on any bill?
That one's kind of unique in that, how that's done.
Well, but, I mean, it's kind of expensive for one bill, but, I mean, is it?
But you don't know
does
the
it-
cost is yet. You just know the hours it's going to take.
Does that apply to all kinds of bills that the township pays, or just one?
If I understood what all of the process was for all of the bills you're talking about, I could give you a better idea. I know in this one, it comes in, how do we want to capture it? How do we want to disseminate it? How do we want to capture approvals? And then to the treasurer. I don't know all the process around your other ones.
Well, if they come from DPW, and then they have to be approved locally by that group, and then they have to go to the finance department to be approved, then they go to the treasurer's office probably, So there's just a little different process, but is it going to cost 15 hours of time to do every one of those processes?
If you were doing a bill submission process, I would build that out as one thing, and I would guess it would probably be right in that 15 to 20 hours.
So that any bill could be paid through a
You could
process?
easily create it to submit any bill, yes.
Okay, I was concerned about one bill, but.
No, no, no.
If you're talking all the bills.
And maybe, oops, I clicked something.
We can go into the weeds, I think, more at Budget Ways and Means in
Yes, I
terms of
think so.
exactly what you're going to get
Right.
and the
I
cost
agree.
associated with
That's something
that.
that the full-timers
Yeah, and then
spend
we
all day on.
we should bring it back to the board, so, and so that you guys can look and see
Isn't that like a
how
report?
we developed it. But the other thing that we were going to talk about, and I don't mean to cut you off, Brian, was the forms portal and how we want to be able to develop Laserfish. So internally, we're all set, all the documents are recorded, records management is in place, and now then we can open it up to the public, so now they can be paying their bills online, just like they do with Treasury. But there's other things that they can do and integrate online, applying for certain applications for the permits and licenses, all can be done online. People no longer have to come in. Now they'll be going through the Treasurer's Department. They'll make those payments to the Treasurer's Department, and all of that stuff. That's a very complicated business process to make sure it all happens. And then on the other side of that is the security issue. And that's what, Lori mentioned it. Brian already has also spoken with our IT director on that issue, so he understands that. Those are all the things we're going to talk about in Budget Ways and Means.
I agree.
But I do think that, I do like the recommendation of going with general code to see, and Brian, would you come back then and present at our Budget Ways and Means Committee in terms of what you're going to be offering and at what cost?
I can, and I did want to just clarify one thing. When I talked about the 15 hours for that one thing, that's not just development. That also includes our documenting the process and coming and training people. So when you say 15 hours and it sounds kind of long, that's literally everything, including us being here and training your end users, which that can add up fairly quickly. But I'm happy to come back to the Ways and Means. I mean, what we try to be at General Code, not just someone that sells you software and walks away. We want to be your partner. We're here as your support. We've already done a lot of free training for Clinton specifically, but also state and county. We're here for whatever you need. Out of hundreds of Laserfish resellers, we actually have the highest customer retention rate worldwide. That's because we're here to partner with you and help you get to where you want to be. So if you want to go fast, if you want to go slow, we'll do whatever works for the township.
Is there anything else that's part of your presentation?
I think if we do it at Ways and Means, that might be easier.
Okay, that's why we do it that way.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Is there a motion to receive and file and dissent to the Budget Ways and Means?
It's already been-
Oh, okay, that's right, we do.
Yes, we do. Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes,
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Ellie.
Public Act 202, Fire and Police Retirement System.
I'm sorry.
Something the state requires once a year, and the board must approve the application for the waiver.
Dear board members, the Statement of Michigan Public Act 202 of 2017 requires all governments to submit Form 5572 pension report to the state. This form determines the funding status of each retirement system using GASB 6768 assumptions. The threshold for determining underfunded status is 60%. The township's fire and police retirement pension system's funded ratio based on GASB 6768 assumption is calculated to be 55.9%. Since the pension system is determined to be underfunded, the township is required to create a corrective action plan. However, if the local government can demonstrate prior actions that have already been implemented to address funding in the system, an application for waiver can be filed. The Police and Fire Pension Board, at its August 20th, 2019 meeting, voted to go from a 20 open amortization of its unfunded actuarial accrued liability to a closed amortization period. What this does is reduce the amortization period each year by 1 year, thus creating a higher required contribution, which leads to paying of the liability quicker. I am recommending the township file the application for waiver based on the decision to close the amortization period, which leads to increased funding. The application for waiver must be approved by the township board. Documentation of the approval must be submitted with the application. If there are any questions or concerns, please call me respectfully, Donna Loretti, Finance Director for the Charter Township Planning.
And Mrs. Loretti is here this evening if anyone has any questions.
So moved. I'm sorry.
We'll get a support, then we'll get questions.
Support.
So, Ms. Loretti, if you could, I think it's important, because I think this is a significant event. It's almost reflected that this is something that's just a routine thing, but it's actually something that's new. For us, because our funding level of the police and fire pension system was over the requirements of 202. And but this is a financial model based upon assumptions that we have to do. We have to look out into the future and anticipate what's going to happen on a number of factors, right? We have to do it with the returns that we're going to get, that we can assume. How many people are going to be working versus how many people are going to be retired? How many, what's a life expectancy? How many years, as that grows, people are going to be collecting and withdrawing from the system for that much longer. And so we've gone through the very difficult process on the pension board of updating all of these assumptions to say, okay, what we were doing before, was that realistic? Were those assumptions real? And we came to the conclusion they weren't.
Correct.
And so we've had to make all of these changes on the pension board, and that then reflects to the state of Michigan that our funding level isn't what we've projected it to be.
Correct.
So now we're at the point where there's the decisions that the pension board can make, and then decisions that the board of trustees has to make.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
Because all of the factors that we decide in terms of contributions, in terms of, every year we've met our required contribution on the police and fire pension. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it's not a situation where the township is taking the irresponsible act of not meeting the required contribution. We do that every year.
Yes.
And in fact, we go above and beyond because healthcare, which isn't required, we make that contribution, and we've made double payments.
Yes.
Over the years. MERS are our general employees. That's the state system. So we don't have a whole lot of control over that, right?
Right, but we have been doubling the contributions to that system also since April of 2018.
Yeah. So we're trying to take the responsible act. I think the pension board made the responsible act of updating those assumptions to say, look, the stuff that we're basing this on is not realistic. So, but that put us at this level of having to, for the first time, apply for this waiver.
Right.
And so what happens if the waiver is granted?
If the waiver is granted, then we continue to do what we're doing.
Okay.
If it's not granted, then we are going to have to come up with a corrective action plan, which is much more intense. I've never done one. and I'm hoping not to. I hope that this waiver is granted. But if it's not, it'll be a corrective action plan that will have to come back to the board and, with specific steps of what you're going to do and the timing of it.
Right. And is this an annual process where each year we would have
Yep,
to
each
apply
year.
for a waiver?
Yep. Next
Okay.
year, if we fall below the 60% again, we will then have to apply for a waiver again.
So I think the reality is, because the fact is, we're trending just like everybody's trending, and that is we have more people retired than we do working. Or it's like kind of 1-to-1, I think, in the township. I know that's the way it was at the county. And life expectancy is going up, and we're going to have more people withdrawing from the system. We're going to be paying more, and our required contribution is going to go up.
Correct.
What do you think that means in terms of the future for having to apply for the waiver and continuing to get the waiver granted?
Well, I'm hoping that we're pretty close to the 60%. We're not that far under it.
Yeah.
And once we put the amortization schedule into place, which is with our next actuary report, which is March 31st, 2020, that's when that will be applied. And in the report that we give to the state, I have to tell them when we believe we are going to hit the 60%.
Okay.
And so if this waiver is granted this year, and I believe, because I've talked with Sandy Rodwin, our actuary, about this, and it looks like the closing of the amortization should get us above the 60% by like 2022. So that will be on this report that I send to the state. So then next year, we'll be able to apply for the waiver if we're still under the 60, which we probably will be at that point. We'll be able to apply for the waiver based on the same criteria that we are right now, because we said we would be hitting the 60% around 2022.
So with the closed amortization and the 20-year and implementing those standards, basically, we're incurring some pain now that benefits us later on.
Correct.
Okay. But there's still a trend that we have to be concerned with.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. I appreciate you being here. I know it was a long meeting to have to sit through, but I thought it was important because this is the first time we're having to do this. So
Yep, absolutely.
we may have some tough decisions confronting us on the board here. The pension board's already implementing some of those strategies.
Yes.
Okay.
Why did it take the pension board so long to figure out things weren't going well?
Well, it's so, I can't speak for the pension board. I'm relatively new on the pension board, but one thing is that we had a pension consultant who had a theory, sort of philosophy of investment. He believes value outperforms growth over time, and he was a value-based investor. And we missed 10 years of growth outperforming value with no investments in our pension system in growth whatsoever.
You didn't get any advice on
There was
changing companies
so
or changing?
the process is for every 3 years, we review both the consultants, the attorneys, and the actuaries. We stepped up the process as we began to talk internally, both, Ms. Meltzer and myself as members of the board, and then began to talk with some of our other members to say we need to step up the review of the consultant. And we did that process, starting in probably 17 to 18 was when we made the change.
So it wasn't quite 10 years, if I may. It wasn't quite
So-
10 years that had passed. I'm sorry. Are you done?
Yeah.
It wasn't quite 10 years that had passed before we recognized there was a problem. But when you have, like Mr. Gilliam stated, the past history, this has been a bull market for a very long time. It's unprecedented, and based on, what has happened in the past and the philosophy, not only by this consultant, but, many of the other big-time, consultants and people that have done really well in the stock market said, don't jump ship, don't jump ship. You stay on, with your value. Value has always outperformed growth. However, that said, when we started looking at, first of all, we started seeing, missed opportunities at about the 7th year, and we're like, wait a minute, what's going on? When is this going to change? When is this bull market going to actually, go to a bear market? And then we started looking at, what we were missing out on the table, and then it was more interviewing with our consultant and him kind of digging his heels in and saying that, just hang in there and, we got to stay with the value. But he wasn't even listening to his own research group within the firm. And the research group, just like anybody, like any consultant will tell you, you have to diversify. So how is it, yes, I agree, you might have a more value-leaning philosophy, but it shouldn't be everything. And so that was my question, and that's why when I was in there, and we talked about it, but I made the motion to say, look, we've got to move this up, and we've got to interview consultants more sooner than later. And so we looked at, it was a hard thing because you build relationships with your consultants and, you put trust in them and so on. But it wasn't a personal thing. It was, what? We have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure we can pay retirement costs for our police and fire. So and it's a big priority, and it's the main reason we are in the position we're in, so being on the pension board. So when, we looked at those facts and, his comment was, no, I'm not going to change my philosophy. It's how I believe. Then that's when we said it's time to interview other consultants, and then we jumped ship. And I think we'd made the right decision. But again, it's going to take time for us to rebound. And on the horizon, I don't see us making, our benchmark, which is at 7%. Is that right? 7?
We were 7.5.
7.5. Now we're at 7. Yeah.
Well, I think it's coming back to the board.
Or 7.2.
Your next meeting, as far as changing it.
7
I don't
and a
think it's
quarter,
actually
7.
changed yet.
Yeah. So there's a lot, that we took the bull by the horns, if you will, in the bull market and said, look, this is what we're going to do. And I think we made the right decision, and we shall see.
So, and if I could, just to elaborate, so there's a theory of what they call sequence risk. And in a sense, what the theory was is that if you're a mature plan, you can't sustain big losses, but you're not going to capture as much on the upswing. So it's a theory, but ultimately we had to conclude that we've given up far too much of the gains, that protecting us on the downside is not something that we could do. And quite frankly, when we brought the new consultant in, first thing we did is moved into some of the same plans that we were in, but at a lower cost structure. Then switching from all the alternatives that we were invested in that have high cost structures and trying to reduce that side of the balance sheet, if you will.
Thank you.
To produce better returns.
Okay, so do we have a motion on the floor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me see. Hang on. Mr. Keys and Mr. Pearl. Yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
You guys.
Item 12?
Item 12 is the
Same thing.
Same thing, only but for the MERS. And is there a different presentation? Donna?
No, it's just a different reason that we're using for the application. For this one, we're using the fact that we have been doubling our contributions since April of 2018, and we continue to do that.
So moved.
So moved.
Sorry. Support.
You going to remember?
Yep. Mr. Pearl made the
Pearl.
motion, supported by Mr. Keys.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melcher, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And item 13, approval of the appointment to the Assistant Water and Sewer Foreman position.
Dear members of the board, the Public Services Department is recommending the appointment of Mr. Randy Raska to the position of Assistant Water and Sewer Foreman. This appointment constitutes a promotion within the department. Based on interviews, the department is confident that Mr. Raska is well qualified to assume the duties of Assistant Foreman. Mr. Raska's salary will be $64,982. Upon Township Board approval, the appointment will be effective November 13th, 2019. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Keys.
Mr. Cannon,
Yes.
Randy is here, so I'd like to introduce him.
Okay, that'd be good. Hi, Randy. Congratulations. Thank you.
Well, we have to vote first.
Yeah.
It looks pretty good. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 14, approval of appointment to Assistant Water and Sewer Foreman position.
Dear members of the board, the Public Services Department is recommending the appointment of Mr. Joseph Tresick IV to the position of Assistant Water and Sewer Foreman. This appointment constitutes a promotion within the department. Based on interviews, the department is confident that Mr. Tresick is well qualified to assume the duties of Assistant Foreman. Mr. Tresick's salary will be $62,062. Upon Township Board approval, the appointment will be effective November 13th, 2019. Thank you for your consideration of this matter. Sincerely, William Smith, Human Resources Director.
And he is also here today. Very good.
Good to see you again.
So move to approve.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 15, request approval to purchase an emergency pumping system for the Water and Sewer Department.
Dear members of the board, attached you will find a price quote for an emergency sewage pumping system for the Water and Sewer Department. This pumping system will be deployed for emergencies such as collapsed sewer line or a failed pump station, as well as planned sewer maintenance activities. The style of pump proposed for this purchase was changed upon the recommendation of our township engineer, AEW. We have contacted the vendor, Xylem Dewatering Solutions, Inc., and they have agreed to honor the pricing offered through the GSA Federal Acquisition Service. In accordance with township purchasing and bid policies, we recommend awarding the emergency pumping system purchase to Xylem Dewatering Solutions, Inc. for $95,650.95. This purchase was budgeted for the current fiscal year. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Sincerely, Charles Belmore, Assistant Superintendent of Water and Sewer.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 16, request purchase of a replacement backhoe for the Water and Sewer Department.
Dear members of the board, attached you will find a price quote for a Case brand backhoe for the Water Department. We have contacted the vendor, Southeastern Equipment Company, and they have agreed to honor the price offered through the Michigan Intergovernmental Trade Network, or MITN. In accordance with township purchasing and bid policies, we recommend awarding the backhoe purchase to Southeastern Equipment Company for $84,784.89. This purchase was budgeted for the current fiscal year, and if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Sincerely, Charles Belmore, Assistant Superintendent of Water and Sewer.
Okay, this is a budgeted item?
It was budgeted for far more, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Okay. It was budgeted for what, 150?
You know what? I don't have my budget book right here, but I believe it was 150.
I think it was 150. We're getting it for 84.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 17, resolution approving continuing disclosure undertaking for Macomb Interceptor Drain.
Dear board members, the financial advisor of the Macomb Interceptor Drain Drainage District has determined that the Clintondale Pump Station Improvements Drainage District Bond Series 2011 should be refunded to realize savings in debt service payments over the remaining life of the bonds. The savings will be passed on to each of the communities that participate in the funding of the debt service payments. Because Charter Township of Clinton is assessed 21.8366% of the debt service on these bonds, we are required by federal law to provide information for the official statement for the bonds and to include these bonds with our annual continuing disclosure update. Attached is a resolution that will authorize these actions and give the necessary approvals for the township. Please review and adopt the resolution authorizing participation in the preparation of the official statement and compliance with the continuing disclosure requirements. Sincerely, Mary Hein, Assistant Finance Director.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you, and this basically gives us a better rate. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 18 is request to submit application to the Macomb County Bicentennial Legacy Fund Grants.
Okay. There's a lot to read, and I wondered if would you want to,
I can summarize
would you want to
it.
sum up? Thank
I
you.
can help if, bring any other
Great.
questions as well related to
So
it.
just recently, we received a grant opportunity through the Macomb County Bicentennial Legacy Fund Grant is what it's called. And it's for paddle boat launch locations. Particularly, they're looking at a universal launch. And so when we received this, we had a committee, myself, Mr. Chabot, I think Brian Kay was in there. We talked with Supervisor Cannon, and we decided that we could apply for this grant and use this for the universal launch that we're proposing at George / Woody Woodrow Park. And so this is what this application is for. But like all grants, we bring it to the board so you know what we're doing and so forth. So at this point, we are looking for permission to file for the grant. And the grant, there's several cost estimates in there. But in a nutshell, this would help for that universal boat launch for $20,000. It's good seed money for that.
Comments or questions?
You have to have the grant, is the grant ready to go?
We have to submit it by Thursday.
Yeah.
That's why it was an add-on to the agenda. Well, actually, I think we made.
This wasn't an add-on.
No, it was one of
There is
those,
one.
we got it the same day that the agenda was due, so we didn't get it as an add-on, but I was worried because it was so close.
But the complete application is what's enclosed. What was it, what we need to complete is part of the board packet. And all the information's been,
We'll be making some minor changes between what's in the packet today and what we submit based on some of the stuff that we've been discussing over the last week. But in essence, what's in front of you is what we plan on submitting.
that'll be on, Thursday before 3 o'clock. When it's due.
I just wanted to say, Mr. Cannon, I'm really excited about this. Thank you, Mary, for your work, and Scott for your work on this. This is all part of the inclusive type activity we want to see in our community. We want everyone to be able to participate. And if you've not had a chance to even to try the boat launch, the universal boat launch at MacArthur Park in Mount Clemens, it's right next to the YMCA. I highly encourage you to try it. Those of you that might be fearful of water, you don't have to fear getting into the canoe. It's seamlessly easy and safe and no tipping over while you're getting into it. Now, what you do after that when you get in the water is up to you, but that is always the challenge, is getting in and out of the water, and this universal boat launch allows it. It is really for everyone. It makes it a lot easier, and I would highly encourage you to participate, get into the water, into our Clinton River. It's beautiful, and once you engage in it, you become a stakeholder, and then you learn how important it is to keep our waters clean and to invest time and effort into making and educating others to think like that. So thank you. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Support. Supported by Mr. Keys. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 20, bid award for the 2019-20 sanitary sewer CCTV and cleaning.
To board members, on November 7th, 2019, the Charter Township of Clinton's Clerk's Office received and processed a total of 5 bids for the above referenced project. Our office checked the tabulation of the responsive bids submitted, and the low bidder is, what is it, Mary? Doach? Doach Environmental Services of Warren, Michigan, in the bid total amount of $563,950. A copy of the final bid tabulations are attached with this letter. The project consists of the closed-circuit televising CCTV and cleaning of 241 1,200 lineal feet of 8-inch to 36-inch sanitary sewers in portions of Section 26 to 28 and in portions of Sections 34 and 35 in Clinton Township. As a condition of the bid requirements, prospective bidders were required to be pre-qualified for sanitary sewer cleaning and televising. Doach Environmental Services provided the necessary pre-qualification information to be considered for bid award. The bid results were reviewed with the Director of Public Services and Township personnel. Based upon the bid submitted and conditions noted above, we recommend that the 2019-20 sanitary sewer CCTV and cleaning project be awarded to Doach Environmental Services located at 21221 Mullen Drive, Warren, Michigan 48089, in the amount of $563,950. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer with AEW.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, the floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Support.
Supported by Mr. Aragona. Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 21, bid award for the Lipke water main replacements.
Dear board members, on November 5th, 2019, the Charter Township of Clinton's Clerk's Office received a total of 8 bids and processed a total of 7 responsive bids for the above referenced project. Our office checked the tabulation of the responsive bids submitted, and the low bidder is TR Piperzak, Inc., of China Township, Michigan, in the bid total amount of $277,973.58. A copy of the final bid tabulations are attached with this letter. The project consists of the installation of a new 8-inch diameter water main that will be directly drilled along the west side of Lipke Street from Laurel Street to Quinn Road. As a condition of the bid requirements, prospective bidders were required to be pre-qualified for water main replacement and horizontal directional drilling for water main or low-pressure sewers in existing residential or commercially developed areas. TR Piperzak, Inc. provided the necessary pre-qualification information to be considered for bid award. The bid results were reviewed with the Director of Public Services and Township personnel. Based upon the bid submitted and conditions noted above, we recommend that the Lipke Road water main replacement be awarded to TR Piperzak, Inc., located at 6267 St. Clair Highway, China Township, Michigan, 48054, in the amount of $277,973.58. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Manager for AEW.
Thank you. And thank you for Mrs. Bednar, Mr. Dolan, getting those easements for the project.
Yeah, this is the area that we just did
Yeah.
all those easements in.
Yep, that was good.
So we were ready to go. We just needed.
Good.
So moved. Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 22, Ridgewood Condominium Emergency Storm Sewer Repair.
Dear board members, the Ridgewood Emergency Public Storm Sewer Repair that was approved by the Clinton Township Board of Trustees on August 12, 2019, is now complete and fully restored. The damaged manhole was completely replaced with a new precast concrete manhole structure by DVM Utilities, Inc. The storm sewer and new manhole were inspected by water and sewer staff. During the course of the project, the engineer and DPS staff received confirmation from the Macomb County Public Works Office that the downstream outlet and section to the Harrington Drain is the responsibility of Clinton Township. A gap in the joint between the storm pipe and end section required repair. DVM Utilities provided a quote for the repair work. The proposed costs described in Change Order 1 were deemed reasonable by AEW and the Clinton Township DPS. The emergency repair work also required a soil, erosion, and sedimentation control permit from the Macomb County Public Works Office. A description of that cost is included with the Change Order 1. The soil erosion permit required a stone access driveway. AEW and the contractor agreed that the stone driveway should be extended from Ridgewood Drive to the repair location. The contractor also agreed to restore all disturbed areas with sod in lieu of topsoil, seed, and mulch. The contractor agreed the sod restoration would be an incidental expense to the added temporary stone access driveway as defined in Change Order 2. The originally approved repair cost was $94,500. The total net increase in contract amount for change orders 1 and 2 is $11,719.11, which is a 12.4% increase. The final contract amount is $106,219.11. Clinton Township policy requires that the Board of Trustees must approve contract modifications where the total cost of the project exceeds 10%. Pursuant to this policy, AEW has prepared this summary letter and background of all the contract modifications for Clinton Township Board review and approval prior to final approval of the final change order number 2. AEW will be present at the November 12, 2019 Township Board meeting to answer any questions related to the contract modifications noted herein. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer with AEW.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions of board members? Okay, the floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second, roll call, please.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 23, request approval of the MDOT contract.
Dear members of the board, attached is the state trunk line maintenance contract from the Michigan Department of Transportation for the maintenance of the Gratiot median. This is the 5-year renewal of our contract with MDOT. We have completed our portion, and Mr. Jack Dolan has also received and reviewed the documents. I'm requesting board approval of the contract. Sincerely, Mary Bednar, Director for the Department of Public Services.
Are there any comments, questions?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And item 24, quarterly treasurer's report.
Mr. Gilliam.
I can actually summarize this. The form is pretty standard. This is a requirement of the township's investment policy as well as Public Act 20. The idea is tell you where the township dollars are invested. Public Act 20 severely limits where we can invest those dollars. The bottom part is usually standard, pretty much telling you where the dollars are. The top part is usually a narrative. I shortened up the narrative this year, or rather this report. This covers the second quarter. And just to show you, we are in an environment of interest rates falling, and that means that the yield on our investments is falling as well. What we came to you with is an extension of the investment policy from 3 years to 5 years. As township dollars come in tax collections for the December collection, we'll be implementing that so we can do what we called our short and long approach, meaning we're not getting returns the longer we take money out other than in the bond market. So extending the duration of our bond investments to try to lock in rates, that's the long. The short is keeping things short to get the best rate of return on CDs. We've eliminated all of the commercial paper, and everything is trending in the same direction. And so I think that pretty much sums it up. We are exceeding our benchmark.
Good. Comments or questions? The floor is open to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Thank you. Roll
Mr.
call,
Pearl.
please.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Motion passes.
Thank you. Item 25, request approval of the 2020 board meeting dates.
So there's two choices, calendar A or calendar B. I think I spoke with Mr. Gilliam. You had said you preferred B, correct?
I do prefer B, yes.
I'm fine with either. Mr. Cannon, I spoke with you. You said you were fine with either.
I'm fine with either.
Do any other board members have a preference?
You have the floor. No, Mr. Gilliam, make a motion.
I'll make the motion, we approve calendar B.
Is there a second?
Second?
Roll call,
Oh,
please.
Mr. Cannon, can I speak on that motion?
Sure.
I'd actually like to make a motion to amend, and if I could get a little leeway from the board, I promise to make this quick. What I'd like to do, in just looking at calendar B, is not change any dates, but when we see the 2020 holiday schedule, I think some residents may look at the January meeting and say, well, why aren't they meeting on a Monday? Well, that's because it's Martin Luther King Day. But we didn't reference that at the bottom for the holiday schedule because our township staff obviously doesn't have that day off. Could we just reference at the bottom portion of this the date for Martin Luther King?
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I'll make that a motion to amend.
The calendar, to amend the calendar.
Correct.
Well, it explains why we have a Tuesday meeting.
Correct.
And I'll second that.
Or I'll just accept it as a friendly.
Or-
Okay.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
I do have one more, though, if I could get some leeway.
Oh, really?
As long as that's been accepted as a friendly, I appreciate the board in doing that. The second one is on Columbus Day. What I'd really like to do here is just amend this schedule to have a / and then next to it, Indigenous People Day. So that way we're respecting both holidays. We've seen that the state has gone ahead and recognized both of these. And I will tell you, in some conversations that we've had on the diversity committee, it's been brought up and members have been looking for ways to try to highlight that day. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that, where we're keeping both of them on the calendar, but just making room for Indigenous People Day.
Sure, I'm okay with that. Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
Great, thank you, guys.
Roll call?
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Motion passes.
So we're with B.
You have
Item 26, discussion on adding board agenda items and backup documentation.
Dear board members, during the October 28, 2019 Board of Trustees meeting, debate on a proposal to allow commercial marijuana operations in the township, I questioned why the map that identified areas where facilities could be located, marijuana zoning map, was not sent out to board members. Clerk Meltzer claimed in response during the public meeting that the marijuana zoning map was sent out and that the reason I had not seen it was because I don't check my emails and need to be spoon-fed information. I did. On October 30th, 2019, I submitted an official FOIA request asking for any emails from township-affiliated accounts that include or reference the most recent ordinance map from 10/28/19 board meeting. The response to my FOIA request uncovered the following. The first draft of the referenced marijuana zoning map was sent to Clerk Meltzer on October 21st. 4 different drafts of the marijuana zoning map were made available to Clerk Meltzer from October 22nd to October 25th. On October 25th at 3 p.m., Clerk Meltzer mailed the marijuana zoning map to a representative of the marijuana industry investor. An hour later, at 4 p.m. on October 25th, Clerk Meltzer submitted the marijuana zoning map to the public agenda packet. On October 28th, Trustee West requested by email a copy of the map and was told in response email message that it was available in the public packet. And I also sent it to her, too. For the record, Ms. Meltzer at no point sent an email to all board members that included a copy of the marijuana zoning map. Our new agenda management system has the functionality to notify members when items have been altered, and Ms. Meltzer appears to have sent the marijuana zoning map to those that stand to financially benefit from the ordinance she was proposing before posting it to the public agenda packet and before informing board members that it was available. Respectfully, Michael Keys, trustee. Are you going to speak to that, or do you want me to?
No,
or
I can
what?
speak to it. I think the letter speaks for itself. We saw it during the last public meeting. I asked for the backup documentation for the item related to marijuana, that why it was not previously sent out. I submitted this FOIA request to find out what emails were sent out with the reference map. Very minimal results came back to my FOIA request. This proved that the documentation was not sent out to board members, but it was sent to somebody who stood to benefit financially from the information. But this situation isn't really our biggest concern anymore. I think we should be concerned about our ability to comply with FOIA requests and the use and manipulation of information within our agenda management system by the clerk and other members of the board. And I think that's something that we have to explore at a later date.
I'm all for, if you guys want to, make a better mousetrap, I'm all for that, and I'm happy to work with you. And we had a meeting today scheduled where only you, Mr. Keys, I thank you for showing up, but only you were able to attend, and it was for training with the Novus agenda management system that we have. My understanding is Joey was sick. I think, Mr. Pearl, you were planning on coming, but the weather. And then, so we will reschedule that, and I am all on board with empowering the board to have the information to make the decisions they need to make on this board. I have absolutely no qualms. I don't want to get in the way of any of that. But I do want to clarify, for the record, as you stated in this letter, Mr. Keys, you said that at no point did I send an email, but I did send that email to my senior staff secretary, and he forwarded he put it into the agenda management system, and every board member did receive it. Now, maybe that's a play on words, I don't know, but the fact of the matter is we've had the agenda management system for 10 months now, and this has not been a problem brought to my attention before this meeting right here, right after the meeting, the last board meeting. So you haven't really given me time to respond to it. However, I did listen to you guys. On the 28th, I heard the comments being made at the board meeting, and as a result, I scheduled that meeting for, on the 1st, November 1st. So I was responding, even before you requested and created this letter, I knew that there was a concern that you had regarding information, and I was fine with having to address that issue and get that information to you in a more timely way, or in a way that is more efficient for you to receive it. However, as I stated, this first bullet point that you made is not accurate. I did send that email. It was sent and put into our agenda management system, and every board member did receive the information in the board packet. In addition to that, Ms. West contacted my office and said she couldn't open it. And I said, okay, no problem. Well, first of all, she didn't say she couldn't open it. She said I didn't send it to her. So I clarified. I said, no, I did send it to you in the board packet. However, I'll send it to you again. So I sent her the zoning map because she asked me to. And I have no problem. I could have sent it to you too as well. Your second point is our new agenda management system has the functionality to notify members when items have been altered. That is something we are working on changing. We have a call into them to see if there's a way for us to send an email notice. But our understanding was from previous conversations before we had the agenda management system is we were constantly sending updates to emails. And Mr. Pearl, you had an issue with that. You kept saying there's too many emails. I'm getting constant emails. And so the agenda management system kind of helped with that. But at the same time, it's kind of creating another problem where you're saying you really don't see when that agenda management system is updated. So we are working with Novus Agenda on that, and we've already made that contact, and they are coming back, will report back to us with a solution. The final bullet point says, Ms. Meltzer appears to have sent the marijuana map to those that stand to financially benefit from the ordinance she was proposing. Let me clarify one thing about this ordinance. This ordinance was introduced a year and a half ago. There was very little difference to what we changed in that ordinance to what it is today. There was a lot of going back and forth in terms of what was the setback going to be. There was some language in there that didn't really apply to us, which was language, a social equity language, because Clinton Township is not a social equity community. There are 42, I think, in the state of Michigan. We are not one of those. We had that language taken out, but there was a lot of typos, a lot of things that we had to go back and forth. And so there was a lot of back and forth, and we just, once we finalized the regulatory ordinance, then we could build the zoning map. Now, that zoning map really was supposed to be introduced if and when the ordinance, the regulatory ordinance would have been approved. However, it was put in the packet anyway because it was more information for everyone. It wasn't even relevant to that agenda item, because the agenda item was a regulatory ordinance, not a zoning ordinance. So I didn't even have to put it in the ordinance at all as the part of the packet. We went above and beyond and put it in there. Now, the fact that Mr. Pearl, you said, I know I made those comments about, you didn't read your email and you have to be spoon-fed, is because you made an accusation. You didn't say.
Mr. Keys?
No, Mr. Keys.
I'm saying Mr. Keys. I'm sorry, did I say you? All right, Mr. Keys.
She wouldn't talk to you that way.
The thing is what did you say?
He said she wouldn't talk to you that way.
Well, he doesn't talk to me that way either, so I guess maybe I'm just giving back what I'm given. But you made the comment that, that I didn't give that information to you, and I did. And so that's what I was responding to. And like I stated earlier, any information that this board needs to make the decisions, I'm more than happy to supply for you. If we want to change the way we, get this information to you, I'm all for building a better mousetrap. I am, not the one that has to make all the decisions about how everything has to work, but if anybody that sat through this meeting tonight can discern, is that I am very involved in this township. I play a lot of different roles, and the fact of the matter is, if I'm not perfect in every one of them, maybe I need some support from you guys, and maybe it should be a nicer approach versus, being so, in a way that is not very nice. I mean, for you to yell out in a board meeting that you didn't get the information, that I didn't do my job, wasn't very nice, Mr. Keys. And so that was my reaction to you not being very nice and polite to me, and respectful. And given all that I do in this township, I work very hard and very committed to this township, to come out and, minimize my efforts because I might not do one thing or a couple of things you don't like, well, I'm happy to work with you, Mr. Keys. And like I said, we can do that. And I would ask that the board not accept this letter as presented, because I don't want it going into the record that this is for the record, because it is not true. So I would like to make a motion to reject this letter. And one other thing, I need a second on that, if I can get a second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And then also I want to say that when this letter came to me, what we printed into the newspaper was, let me locate the actual language. This is what you sent over, Mr. Keys. Oh, I can't find it. Hang on. You said, please add discussion on adding board agenda items and backup documentation. So, and in addition to that, you sent the 3 emails that were forwarded. So we did that, but that's what we sent to the newspaper to publish, that's what was going to be on the agenda. But when I got to your documentation, the title of it was Distribution of Commercial Marijuana Facility Zoning Map. Then in another letter you sent, and you called it, oh boy, all these documents here, there's so many of them. Distribution of the zoning map identifying areas where commercial marijuana facilities could be located in Clinton Township under a proposal introduced by Clerk Kim Meltzer. So that's 3 different titles that you sent. And so I wasn't sure that even this letter was applicable to what we posted in the newspaper. And what we post in the newspaper has to comply with what's in the packet. So it would be like if somebody were to say, we're going to discuss township SADs, and instead they give me a calendar for the year. That's what I feel like this letter was. And I don't think it accurately reflects the intent of what you had written in the newspaper. And I certainly don't think it's accurate in terms of how I operate and what I did, what I've done, I mean. Thank you, Mr. Cannon.
Mr. Pearl?
I'm not going to comment on your discussion, but as a member the last 11 years on this township board, I think originally we used to get a lot of emails, and then you have to trace down each thing. Mm-hmm. And, you'd end up with reprinting the whole thing again, or figuring out what version you were looking at. All I'm asking at this point, since you introduced the new system, is can the system, when we log into it, identify those pages that have been changed or added? That's all. I don't need an email, correct. Okay. I just need to know, because I don't want to read the whole thing all over again. Mm-hmm. And figure out, what did you change? Mm-hmm. I need something to identify if I'm going to take the time every day, 2 or 3 times a day to look, or once a day during my full-time job. I need to look quickly and identify in a different color what are the changes, what's been updated. Okay. What items were added, or what items were changed, because we have to make decisions on these things, and I like to know I have the correct version. Mm-hmm. So I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
And in regards to what the letter and whatever, I would accept both his letter and your comments in the record. And I feel they're both warranted to be on the record.
Appreciate that.
You know, so that's how I feel. I mean, and I'm not going to comment about what was said, I just, other than the one item.
Okay. Mr. Gilliam?
Yeah. We've got an ordinance based upon a map. A map is an essential part of the issue as to where these facilities are going to be located. It was one of the most highly charged issues that's come before the board in years. We opened up doors, we created overflow rooms, and all of it is predicated on a map. People want to know where these facilities are going to be located. I'm waiting on a map. I don't have a map. I leave Friday at 5, and I don't believe that there's a map. No one ever told me there was a map. I've been asking for a map, didn't get a map. I get a phone call, did you see the disclaimer on the map? No, I haven't seen a map. I've never gotten a map. Oh, well, it's on the public packet. Oh, I didn't know that. So Saturday morning, on something I'm voting on Monday, there's this last-minute insertion into this public agenda packet. That's not a notification to board members that the map is now publicly available for everybody, oh, and for you too. And then I'm like, what disclaimer? I don't know any disclaimer. I don't know what this disclaimer is about. Oh, disclaimer is, oh, this is the map, but it might be this, it might be that. This map might not accurately reflect. I'm like, what is going on here? So Mr. Keys brought the issue up. He was frustrated by the process. He got a response that was so charged that he was motivated to actually submit a FOIA to have to get the information to prove that he's doing his job. Because he was told that he wasn't. He was told that he's not meeting his responsibilities as a board member and paying attention to the agenda packet and wants everything spoon-fed to him. I was appalled. And so, but the letter's accurate. We did not get an email. And then in terms of the fact that this was introduced a year and a half ago, there was an ordinance a year and a half ago that dealt with medical marijuana. This is an ordinance that deals with all of the above. So you cannot claim, I'm sorry, you can't claim that this was introduced a year and a half ago. So letter's accurate. I'll be voting against the motion.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion at the board level? We'll go to the community.
Yes, I'm rather shocked because there again, having looked at the prior maps and such, this map coming out had a whole bunch of areas that were on no other map. And I'm quite shocked that the marijuana industry, they merited the clerk sending out a map to them in a special email, but it just got hidden into the board packets, that an update that people didn't go. The other thing is that, there again, this is the discussion is on adding board agenda items. Any board member can add an agenda item, right? That doesn't take multiples, it just takes one, and then the board votes on it. But that is true. Okay, with just one board member required. I know we were told at a community meeting that it took 3 trustees at least.
2 if it's a special meeting. 2 for a special meeting.
Yeah, no, this was just for adding a normal board agenda item. So it's just one person is required to put yes. But I am surprised, I think it's showing where the problem is coming in. The fact that the marijuana industry was special emailed this map. The board members were not. Were any homeowner groups or condominium groups? Because this map went so much farther than anything we've seen before.
Well,
Were any
all your questions have to come to me, please.
Okay, well, were any other
Okay, this,
members of the community, other than the marijuana
you
industry?
can make the statements you want. This is not a public hearing. This is a meeting of the township board in public.
I
And
think
you're welcome to make your comments.
that answers it, that no homeowners association, no condo associations got the email with this map. So basically, the board members kind of had it snuck in. The people in the community that have been paying the taxes all these years, they got eliminated. But the out-of-town investors, they got a private email. That's really sweet.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Peter Viviano. I have to say my address again. 38374 Saddle Lane in Clinton Township, Michigan. This is systematic of the whole process from the beginning. You know, I voted against the referendum, but the only thing I took away from that last meeting was that even proponents, I sat next to two proponents of the referendum, they want a clear and fair process. This process has been far from open. This is pretty much, you know, we universally oppose crony capitalism, and we want transparencies. And so far, all we had are secret meetings. We had removal of competing ideas from the Planning Commission by reassigning a board member. I mean, the supervisor, Bob, told everyone at one meeting, and I remember this because I asked a question, is there any sites or any plans for any locations for marijuana businesses? Bob looked me in the eye and he said, there is none. And then 2 days later, he reveals on his Facebook page the renderings that we see him lording over in the Macomb Daily of the plan that George had. Those renderings were in his back pocket, as well as the PUD ordinances that had been drafted by the Planning Commission well before that. So, again, so the supervisor, and go on to the next issue, the supervisor and the clerk warn us that we had to act. We had to act now, that the ballot initiative was so ominous, so foreboding, that if we don't act now, we're going to have no control. And then he gives control to presenting the ordinance to Steve Linder, the sponsor of the ballot initiative, which is kind of ironic because the people here today presenting were people that you were going to hire to do work and people that worked for the city. So if there was an ordinance to present, the gentleman that sits next to Mr. Dolan should have gave the presentation. And that was the fact that it was just, anyways, I digressed. The board, so doesn't this board have the power to set ordinances? You know, we have, you can set fences, sign sizes, square footage, areas to operate. And why was the board so willing to advocate their responsibility? I mean, you have the ordinance authority, even the cannabis referendum that the state passed, as mentioned in the last meeting, that only allows the petitioners to attempt to regulate a number. You know, the optics on this whole, the optics on this is so terrible. We have, the process is shameful. The last meeting was orchestrated, and it didn't go a way that some of you planned. I ask you guys right now, let's start our transparency now. Let's start this transparency with the ballot initiative that's sitting in Kim's possession. And the question, there's questions that have to be answered. Is this township's position that any initiative with enough signatures makes the ballot? When does content come into play? I mean, it could be a picture of Bugs Bunny, or it could be declaring somebody a king and over authority. There has to be some scrutiny. You got to check the signatures. You have to validate the content, and you have to make sure it is legal. The ballot initiative to go forward has to to fulfill all those requirements. And not only that, the process has to be open. So who reviews this? Tell us the process. And for the first time, be clear, truthful. And so far, there's just been sneaking around. You know, you're to represent all of us. You're not representing the interest of a few 5 business members. So I would like the process, and I would like the process I would like the email of the process. That would be kind of nice to know, because I can't write all this down.
Well,
Yeah.
he can make his comments.
Yeah, I have, I printed it off, but I didn't realize we were going to be discussing this particular part of this is really not part of this agenda item.
I know that.
So, but I,
I've
you know, I
given a lot
respect
of
the
leeway
fact.
here.
Yeah, I
Well,
respect the
to
fact
be
that they
honest with
wanted
you, it
to.
is part of the agenda item. It's part of the question of clarity.
No.
Councilman Trustee Keys,
Mr. Viviano, this is not, I've given you a lot of leeway, so.
I respect that you've given me a lot of leeway, but if you wanted to ask, you asked me if, how I found it to fit in, it fits in with exactly his sentiment and statement that he sent. He did note that he's asking the board to be transparent with fellow trustees on the board. And that's a simple statement.
That's fine.
Then I'm sending one step further, that not only does the board be transparent to fellow members of the board and give them the respect they do, give the respect to the citizens that pay the taxes to the people on the board, not to special interests of the 5 people who are going to profit from this proposal. See, it does make sense, and it is sequitur. So.
Mr. Cannon, so, like I stated, I wasn't expecting to discuss this issue, and if you're giving latitude in which to allow the public to speak to it, I appreciate that. But I do have a document I'd like to kind of read a little bit. It's from the Citizens Research Council of Michigan, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that often writes documents, briefs, whatever, I'm not sure the terminology, that gives a fair, balanced opinion about certain issues. So one of the issues is, you know, whether or not the township has the authority to reject ballot language.
So, Mrs. Meltzer, this is not part of the agenda item.
You're correct, but you just said you were giving him the latitude to speak on it. Is this what, I mean, it's your meeting, so if you don't want me to speak on it.
You can respond at, like in writing, he
So-
asked for an email anyways.
Yeah, and I can send you that information. I'll send you all of that information if you like. But basically, there is no language in the state statute that gives me the authority to reject ballot language. And I even asked Mr. Penna, because he was threatened a lawsuit, and I said, show me where it's at in the state statute, and then maybe, you know, I'm fine to comply with it. But right now, there is nothing in state statute that I can find that any attorney has ever told me that it exists. And so this language.
So then any ballot initiative with enough signatures, no matter how ridiculous it is or how non-compliant to any law, goes forward to the citizens for an election?
So in this
So I
case-
could declare myself king of Clinton Township?
You could, but would you get the votes? So that's called democracy, right? So
No,
that's
but doesn't,
democracy.
that's,
And it can
it
be
would be up
crazy,
to
but
you
that
to
doesn't-
make it reasonable and
Viviano.
apparent.
It isn't, because the law
I've given her
doesn't
the
allow
leeway
me.
to answer with something she's got.
The law- a law-
Then we're done with this topic.
Okay. The law just does not allow me to. And it says, even in this, it says Michigan's initiative petition process stands alone, an issue ripe for reform. In a nutshell, unlike other states with the citizen initiative, Michigan does not have a process for identifying potential shortcomings in the substance of proposed constitutional and statutory law changes before petitions are circulated. Processes used in other states involve attorneys general, the courts, opponents and of the proposals, and civic public affairs organizations prior to signatures gathered. Reforms aimed at front-loading Michigan's initiative process would ensure the citizenry maintains its grassroots lawmaking power, permit more information about the proposal during petition circulation, and eliminate lawsuits that breed distrust in government. So it states, and this article was written in June of 2018, and it was talking about how Michigan legislature needs to do something because it has not been addressed. And so what I'm talking about, though, is a specific ballot initiative that's generated by the people in a township, not a city. A city, it has been addressed in a home city rule law. So township, it's never been addressed statutorily. And so we as a board or we as a municipality can introduce a ballot initiative, and there's process written in statute for us to comply with, and we can and we have done that. But for you as the petitioner, there's nothing in the state statute. So if you want to put a ballot initiative together saying that you're the king of Clinton Township and you want votes for that, go for it. You can do it, and I am not going to reject that ballot language.
Even if it violates the state statute.
Huh?
Even if
Well-
it violates
No,
the
no,
referendum?
we're off the.
There is no state statute. There is no
Okay.
state statute.
Mr. Dolan,
And
would
I'll
you
give
finish
this-
this
I'll make these
conversation, please?
I'll make these copies available for you and send them out to you, and whoever wants them.
This is a complicated area that can't be fully addressed with regard to the scope of the initiatory petition process and the topics that are permitted in a short period of time. Suffice it to say, though, there is a limited discussion and availability of the process for townships. Her statement about the lack of what I'll call process authority set forth in the statutes is particularly true with regard to townships in relation to other entities such as cities. But it's a discussion that requires far more context than we can give in just a few minutes as we talk about an agenda item that doesn't really involve this.
Thank you. Mr. Penna, are you here to talk about Mr. Key's letter?
I am.
Okay.
I am. Anthony Penna, 37380 Willow Lane, Clinton Township, resident for Clinton Township for 40 years. Through the supervisor, I think what Mr. Keys is referring to tonight is trying to highlight, to ensure that there is some due process here, and or that the process is proper. And as I understand it, I think we're all concerned, Clerk Meltzer, through the supervisor, we're concerned that the process is not fair. And you referred to, prime example, this mousetrap that apparently you send out emails regarding zoning maps to individuals who stand to make a tremendous amount of money from those zoning maps. You send those zoning maps out to those individuals before you send it out to board members. And
Mrs. Meltzer did explain all that.
yeah, no,
the
she did.
process.
And that's as I understood it. The first thing she does is send it to the business guy who stands to make a ton of money. Then she puts it into the agenda management system. Which one did you do first?
She gave it to her
Well,
appointee.
as I
She did
understood
mention
it,
that.
she first submitted the email to the businessman. And if that's the process, well, then I'm going to tell you it's flawed. And we're concerned that there's other processes that are flawed that I identified in my November 4th letter. So I'm hopeful that I get a better response and we don't have to proceed with litigation, but we stand ready to, so.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Meltzer,
May I
yes?
just add something here for a moment before we
Yes.
vote on that motion? Because, Bob, you used the terminology reject, and I think what you mean is to note, you wanted to reject putting it in the record. Is that right? I want to make sure I'm
I
clear
made
on
the motion, so
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, but we are, as matters take place here, we're under an obligation to record minutes. We can't completely delete,
Right.
pretend something didn't happen. So I think what you want to note is that you feel that this is not deserving of being treated as a valid concern. But when you say reject, I want to just clarify that.
Mrs. Meltzer, did you want to change
Because
the motion?
obviously our minutes
Okay.
have to reflect the
Sure.
discussion that's gone on.
That's what I said.
And the action of the
Both
board.
should be part of the record. Both discussions should be part of the record. No, but just accept them both and let's end it. You can't reject what's public already said. It's already heard out there. You can't say it
Yeah,
didn't
I
happen.
understand that. My point is that this is a game that I think Mr. Keys is playing, and that it will be extrapolated out that this was on an agenda packet, which gives it credibility, when in fact, as though it's truthful. And it's certainly not truthful, whether you believe it or you don't believe it.
But your comments
given
are
my-
there, too.
My
It's part of the
position.
minutes.
I understand, but there's an extrapolation of stuff that he'll take out and he'll have, and they'll do neg pieces. And to me, is this a violation of campaign finance law? Because if that does take place, he's actually utilized this opportunity to create a political position
But you
for
can
him or
vote-
somebody else, or anybody else.
You can vote any way you want,
Nonsense.
but the point is that it's already said, It's already in the minutes.
Right.
It's already done.
That's
And
fine.
your
We
comments
can-
are in there, too.
Yeah, I understand.
So,
I understand,
I
but-
don't know why we're voting to reject something that's
Because
already
it's
been
not
heard
true,
by
and
everybody.
it's not a true statement, is why
But
it
that's
isn't.
immaterial.
But, and because what was written in the newspaper has nothing to do with this. And so there is processes, you're correct, there are processes that are going on that we need to fix, because this was not a fair process in that you put it on, what you told us to report in the newspaper is not what you put in this backup as your letter. So that's correct. So what I'll do is I'll rescind or drop my motion, and whoever wants to make a motion, Mr. Cannon, do you concur?
Mr. Dolan has.
I'll just, whatever.
I was- what I was
It's already
trying
in,
to
like
say
you
is
said,
we
it's in there.
can't
It's receive and file.
If you're,
Receive and file.
when you
and be
use
done
the
with it.
term
Let's move on.
rejection in your motion, if you meant have it deleted so it doesn't appear in the record.
Yeah, we've already had a discussion.
Yeah, I don't think we can do
My
that.
point
That
was
the only
really-
point I was trying to make.
Yeah, and I understand. My point is really to say that this is not an accurate statement, and really, the process here is to get to a determination. To be honest with you, this didn't happen. As I stated, what was submitted to the newspaper is not what this letter is about, and so in that regard, we do need to address it. That's really what I mean by rejecting it, but again, whatever. I rescind or take back my motion. Mr. Cannon, I presume you'll take back your support of
Yes.
it, and whatever.
Receive.
Whoever wants to make a motion,
So
go for
Jack,
it.
it's a receive and file, right? Is there any other options? All right, so I'll make the motion to receive and file.
Support.
Roll call?
Mr. Aragona.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Meltzer, no. Motion passes.
We have a closed session pending litigation with Purdue Pharma. We will not be coming out of closed session. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
Hang on a second, wait.
Yeah, it was that add-on. It was from,
Yeah, acquisition.
I'm sorry.
Part of the, agenda. It's
That is
listed
number
as an
28.
agenda.
So moved.
So move to go into, to close session, right?
Yeah.
I'll support.
Well,
We have to
no,
do Bill.
we need to do 28, the.
Yeah, we skipped.
We will.
Well, we'll do it at the end of the meeting.
We skipped one.
We're going into closed session. We have a motion on the floor, item number 28, and a support. Roll call.
No,
please.
I'm sorry to clarify. That's not what I have as my item 28, and that's
Right.
what I'm trying to get clarification on.
Oh,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what I have on mine.
Okay,
No,
it's,
Yeah,
it's a,
you gotta look at the computer
yeah.
system.
yeah.
It's
So
changed.
item
You don't want to have to
Change.
spoon feed you, man. I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
I print my things off. so I-
They made a change, is why I asked, that we get notified of those add-on items. There's a change in the electronic version.
Do you want me to read it,
So this
Mr.
has to do with
Cannon?
the approval of the sidewalk easement?
Oh,
The
Grant easement
The
acquisition.
approval of sidewalk easement acquisition request. Can I proceed? That's, dear board members, pursuant to the recommendations given from the November 12, 2019 Budget Ways and Means meeting, we are requesting approval from the Township Board to accept the terms and conditions of the attached sidewalk easement documentation. These sidewalk easements are for the two parcels located at 21026 Cass Avenue and are needed for the TAP Grant Pathway Project. AEW and the Department of Public Services had several discussions with the property owner throughout the easement acquisition process. One of the concerns in our discussions was to minimize future trail user conflicts with parked vehicles on the Cass Avenue driveway approach to the building. The attached Exhibit B sketch includes concrete parking pads that will provide an alternate parking location of vehicles that currently occupy the driveway. Warning signage improvements are also noted on the sketch. Since the terms of the easement acquisition requires improvements on private property, Township Board approval is required. The existing property owner recently indicated that the improvements and acquisition costs are acceptable and is ready to dedicate the needed easements for the pathway. We formally request your consideration to accept the terms of the easement agreements noted herein so we can promptly finalize acquisition of these easements for the TAP Grant Pathway. Sincerely, Scott Chabot, Senior Project Engineer for AEW. And this is, Mr. Cannon, this was discussed in Budget Ways and
It
Means.
was.
Yeah, and it has to do with
Had
that.
I looked at my
Well, it was
computer
added,
today,
yeah,
I would have known that there was an additional
Yes, it is in the
add-on
computer.
this morning,
which we're leading,
but I did not, and went with my paper copy.
correct.
And I apologize again.
That's all right. There'll be other times.
I know, it'll come back. I fully expect it.
This is what we need to do to get an easement so we can proceed ahead with the project that we're all hoping goes in.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Now, next add-on, closed session.
So moved.
Support.
We are not
Go into
coming out of closed session.
session for pending litigation.
Pending litigation. Roll call.
Mrs. Melter, yes.
Township
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Approval of the minutes of the October 28th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Mrs. Melter, yes, motion passes.
Thank you. We have two public comments.
Did we do the bills?
I'm sorry, do the approval of the bills?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Melter, yes. Mr. Pearl.
Yes.
Mr. Keys.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Argona.
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. First public comment, Mr. Hogan.
Bob Hogan, 36755 Bar Street, Clinton Township, Michigan. I've sat here for 3.5 hours going through 26 agenda items to address the board. That shows you how important this item is to me. It's a health and safety concern. First, I'll go with the goal, then the solution, then the problem. The goal is to have Mr. Cannon assign Mr. Thompson the task to resolve this problem, which I'll present in a moment. It should take Mr. Thompson less than 5 minutes. The solution must result in all tables in the euchre room and all players in the same room playing at the same time. Easy. I was at the senior center playing euchre last Thursday. There were 34 residents in room number 5, 10 tables for the card players, 1 additional table for administration purposes, 40 chairs, 3 wheelchairs, and 3 walkers. Some of the members with limited mobility had to take the SEMTA bus system. Other seniors with limited dexterity park in the handicap spots. We were crowded into community room number 5 with the overflow of people and equipment in the doorway, but then it was eventually moved to the hallway. I have complained about the overcrowding conditions of all these people in one room several times since May. Now the frustration has set in, and it is time to bring this formally to the Board of Trustees. Overcrowding is unhealthy. In a small room, it creates a condition where the air is thick with hot breath and getting thicker by the minute. Air quality diminishes in a small room when you stick a bunch of exhaling humans into it. The ceiling fan just circulates thick, hot carbon dioxide in a small concentrated area, regardless if the door is open or closed, but certainly if it is closed, it is worse. The players in room number 5 are uncomfortable, warm, but when they progress to the hallway table, which is outside, some of the players have to put on a sweater because of the temperature change. A small room crowded with euchre players at the senior center spreads germs. For 2.5 hours, each and every senior citizen playing cards is merely inches away from physical contact with another person. It's an unhealthy condition. If someone has a cough, is sneezing, has a cold, or is spreading other kinds of viruses, it's easy to transmit because we're all right next to each other. It is unsafe. There were 34 seniors in room number 5 and in the hallway.
5 seconds left. I don't know how Mr. Thompson can help, but I certainly will talk to the director tomorrow.
Mr. Thompson's the man. Anyways, thank you for letting me speak on this topic tonight. I didn't finish it, so in 2 weeks, I will finish it.
Second comment this evening is Mr. Bushell.
For the last year and a half, I've come before this board and sent in FOIAs on a new trucking firm that suddenly appeared on Groesbeck Highway. This trucking firm it got a fence permit in November 2018. And that's because on August the 20th of 2018, this board, 7 members of you, all approved a temporary use for this trucking parking lot. Now, you can only approve a temporary use for 6 months, then you have to reapprove it. You haven't done that. There again, the gravel lot, there's no permit for that, and it's illegal. There's no setbacks, no site plan, no sidewalks, no landscaping, not a bush or a tree, no drainage, and Groesbeck has a heck of a drainage problem. The assessor says now that it'll be 2 years, in the summer of 2020, they will get a tax bill that reflects the fact that they are a trucking firm, that they've had this fencing added. And in fact, I sent you all a copy of her letter, in the mail, through the email. This is unbelievable that this board all the time knew that you approved. This is an area where we're spending money to get an outside firm to say how to, fix it up, make it better. And that this board granted all these variances, did not, there again, I looked at the tape of the meeting, everybody should, and they should read the motion. I didn't see all these variances and all this setback, everything was given up to them. In the north part of the township, any place like this has got to have a nice decorative fence, not a 6-foot cyclone fence with barbed wire on top, right out to the road. This is terrible. And this board, I've asked several of the board members to actually put this on the agenda to at least reapprove, if you're going to reapprove it. Let the public know you approved this total garbage lot with no drainage. There again, we do have signs on the road saying water over the road during rain, but I don't think that is quite as much as having a site plan property. And this board should have all 7 of you knew you approved this, and you let me come up here and say this month after month, and acted like you didn't know what it was. And I had to keep going through FOIAs. I've got a FOIA that says there's nothing there from this township. And that wasn't true. I mean, the trucking firm was there. I gave the address. This board, they're going the assessor will give them a tax bill after 2 years of operation. And this board did it. And I don't think you gave any citizens in a home that type of a deal. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Miller did answer your questions accurately this afternoon. A motion is in order to go into closed session.
So moved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Meltzer, yes. Mr. Aragona?
Yes.
Mr. Keys?
Yes.
Mr. Pearl?
Yes.
Mr. Cannon?
Yes.
Mr. Gilliam?
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
passed.
Meeting adjourned. Go into closed session.